Book 10, Baruch, Chapter 13, Linley's Return. Asano transformed into a black blur as he chased after Haru at high speed. He's too fast. This isn't good. Haru frantically flew towards the southeast at high speed, and as he did, his spiritual energy detected Asano chasing towards him. In terms of speed, Haru's speed was a good bit lower than Asano's. Haru had a very good understanding of his own level of power. In truth, Haru was only an early-stage saint-level magical beast. Because magical beasts were naturally more powerful than humans, he was able to compete against peak-stage human saints. For example, the world bear was a creature who would be able to defeat most peak-stage saints as soon as it entered the saint level. This was a question of inherent gifts. Bibi was the same as well. Bibi had only just reached the saint level not too long ago, but Bibi belonged to an extremely rare, exalted lineage. Despite only being an early-stage saint, he was so powerful that even the monolithic sword saint, Haidsun, was inferior to him. In terms of inherent giftedness, even the world bear was a level lower than him. You want to flee? Asano quickly saw that the black cloud panther was scurrying away through the air at high speed. Asano's entire body was currently surrounded with dim black flames, making him look like a fiend from hell. Asano quickly charged towards the black cloud panther, preparing to attack. Haru, terrified, instantly shrank in size, quickly transforming into a fist size. Swish! The now mouse-sized black cloud panther dove directly down into the ground. Bam! A terrifying surge of black flame blasted towards the ground, instantly vaporizing the rocks and the dirt, revealing an incredibly deep tunnel in the ground. Asano landed near it, peering down into the immeasurably deep tunnel. Humph! You really can run. Asano sneered coldly. Saint-level magical beasts could change their size freely, and after shrinking in size, they could move incredibly fast. Human saints, by contrast, didn't have this ability. Although Asano was extremely powerful, he was far inferior to a saint-level beast when it came to tunneling through the ground. Hundreds of meters below the ground, Haru frantically continued to dig, creating a natural flow of sharp wind in front of him as he quickly pierced through the dirt. Master, Master! Haru was extremely panicked. Master only said he was going to the south. The distance is too far. We can't even communicate spiritually. Magical beasts and their masters had a maximum distance by which they could communicate spiritually. The more powerful the spiritual energy, the greater the distance they could communicate at. Currently, Linley and Haru could communicate at a distance of 1,000 kilometers. However, right now, Linley was in the southern part of the anarchic lands, fully 3,000 kilometers away from Haru. There was no way Haru could communicate with Linley. All he could do was vaguely sense the direction Linley was in. Traveling beneath the ground, Haru ran frantically in Linley's direction. Asano returned to the prefectural city of Moat. In the air above it, he stared at those four-winged angels and instructed, "Take those two undying warriors and imprison them in the prefectural city of Sherry along with the other three. I'll go pay a visit to Black Dirt City." With a flip of his hand, Asano retrieved two more adamantinoloid monocles and tossed them to the angels. "Yes, Lord." Those angels said respectfully. Asano stared towards the north. According to his calculations, Linley should be in the Black Dirt City region right now. That panther-type beast of his should have gone to inform him. I wonder if Linley will fight or flee. And then, Asano transformed into a black blur and began to fly towards the north. In the southern part of the anarchic lands, within a small forest in the mysterious village, there was a stone room with a stone table inside. Linley and Reynolds had been drinking here all night. It was roughly 3 a.m. or 4 a.m. by now. At daybreak, Linley was going to leave. In another 2 or 3 hours, BB and I will both leave. Fourth bro, when you are free, you can go back to the imperial capital for a while. Your parents most likely have been missing you very much. Linley instructed Reynolds, and then winked at Monica, who was seated next to him. Laughing, he said, "All right, fourth bro, you should go get some rest. You haven't slept all night." Monica and Reynolds were sitting side by side. "Third bro, thank you so much for everything," Reynolds said gratefully. Whether it was allowing him and Monica to be together, or allowing him to have the special permission of leaving the village once every year, it was all due to Linley. Reynolds understood, given his own abilities, Desri and the others wouldn't have cared about him at all. Linley's lips quirked up in a smile, and he laughingly berated him, "Fourth bro, why do you stand on courtesy with me?" Linley's face suddenly changed. Haru was now within 1,000 kilometers of him, and Haru's voice instantly rang out in Linley's mind. "Master, things have gone badly. The saints of the Radiant Church have attacked, and Barker and his brothers have already been captured." This news came as a huge shock to Linley. "Reynolds." Linley's face suddenly became grim. "I'm sorry. I have something to take care of. I need to leave immediately." "What happened?" Reynolds and Monica were both surprised. Linley shook his head. "Some private matters." "Right. Fourth bro, you don't need to worry about it." Linley squeezed out a smile, then clubbed Reynolds on the chest. "All right, I'm off." With a flicker, Linley disappeared, transforming into a blur. Arriving at Desri's residence, he said in a clear voice, "Mr. Desri." In the area around the mountain residence, there were a number of stone rooms. Hayward was currently with Foreman inside one of them. "Linley, what's wrong?" Hayward, who had just been in the middle of training, stopped and walked out of the stone room. For Linley to have rushed here at such high speed meant that something must have happened. A few moments later, Desri and the others walked out from the residence. Linley looked at Desri, Hayward, and the others, then immediately said apologetically, "Mr. Desri, everyone, something came up, and I need to leave." Linley had an apologetic look on his face. "Did something happen? Do you need my assistance?" Desri asked. "No need." Linley shook his head. Linley knew that Desri and his group had been training in seclusion for a long time now. No doubt, they had no interest in fighting over power or authority. Desri asking him if he needed help was nothing more than him just being courteous. If he truly asked for Desri to go help him deal with the Radiant Church, that might actually make Desri feel resentful towards him. More importantly, over this recent period of time, Linley had come to understand that in the past, Desri had been a member of the Radiant Church. Naturally, he had already left the Radiant Church by now. It wasn't just Desri, even Higginson had previously been a member of the Radiant Church. "Everyone, farewell." After bowing, Linley instantly utilized the wind shadow spell and flew into the sky. Bibi, who had been sleeping nearby in the grass, instantly transformed into a black shadow as well and flew into the air. A man and his magical beast flew away, just like that. Desri and the others watched them fly out of the mysterious village, out of the mountain, and then continue north at high speed. It was still late at night. "Boss, what happened? What's the rush?" Bibi asked while flying alongside Linley. "The Radiant Church is playing for keeps." Linley's eyes narrowed, emitting a razor-sharp light. Bibi instantly grew excited. "Oh? The Radiant Church really dares to go head-on against us? Wonderful. I've been bored to death lately. Now, I can have some good fun." Bibi's eyes had a hint of bloodlust in them. "It's been a long time since I've had a nice good slaughterfest." Linley's eyes contained a killing intent as well. "I've waited for this day for a long time." Linley felt utter hatred from the depths of his heart towards the Radiant Church. Whether it was his father, his mother, or Grandpa Douring, all of his loved ones had departed for reasons related to the Radiant Church. This superficially honorable but secretly vicious organization was one which Linley had desired to destroy long ago. Linley and Bibi flew at very high speed. Soon, they saw a black blur erupt from the ground below and join them, flying next to Linley. "Master," Haru said respectfully. Bibi immediately called out, "Haru, what's the situation? Quick, speak up." While flying, Haru said, Barker and Boone were staying in the prefectural city of Mode, but today, 7 four-winged angels of the Radiant Church and a human saint came attacking out of nowhere. 7 four-winged angels. Bibi's eyes lit up. Whoa-a-ho. Awesome. The four-winged angels weren't so bad, but that human saint was absolutely terrifying. In the blink of an eye, he kicked the already transformed Barker and Boone and injured them so badly they couldn't move. I didn't dare to fight against him at all. My only choice was to flee. When I fled into the ground, he emitted a wave of black fire that blasted a hole several hundred meters deep. I nearly lost my life. That human saint is too powerful. I feel he is far more powerful than that Hatesun. Haru, when discussing Asano, still felt a hint of fear even now. Linley pondered this in his mind. According to what the war god said, the Holy Emperor of the Radiant Church should be a level lower than the likes of Fane and Desri, but stronger than Hatesun. The person who came today, it sounds like he is on par with the Holy Emperor. Black flame, and power on par with the Holy Emperor. Could it be the person who is on par with the Holy Emperor in both power and status, that ruthless, diabolical, Praetor Asano of the Ecclesiastical Tribunal? Linley secretly wondered. Linley didn't believe that the Holy Emperor himself would attack, but it was very possible that Asano would. Bibi, this opponent should be more powerful than Hatesun. You need to be careful as well. Linley reminded. This time, we can't be overconfident in the slightest. When we reach the Sherry Duchy, I'll cast the Wind Shadow spell on both of you. As a spell of the 9th rank, despite only being a supportive spell, the Wind Shadow spell still consumed a great deal of mage force. Fortunately, Linley possessed the Coiling Dragon ring, and by casting spells through the Coiling Dragon ring, he only needed to expend a sixth of the normal spiritual energy and mage force. Wind Shadow. Bibi rolled his eyes. Could it be that he's faster than me? We can't be too cocky. Linley shook his head. Bibi nodded. Linley said towards Haru, Haru, let me and Bibi handle that human saint. As for you, go deal with those four-winged angels. When we first arrive, we'll help you kill a few four-winged angels as well. Yes, master. Haru replied. Immediately, the man and his 2 magical beasts flew north at high speed. At around 5 in the morning, as the sky was just barely beginning to lighten, Linley, Bibi, and Haru arrived within the borders of the Sherry Duchy. Upon reaching the Sherry Duchy, Linley immediately dragon-formed while also casting the Wind Shadow spell on Bibi and Haru. Boss, I feel as though your current level of speed has increased quite a bit. Bibi could sense the extra speed provided by the Wind Shadow spell, but at the same time, he stared in puzzlement at Linley. I had some insights while training on the elemental laws of the wind. Naturally, my speed went up a level as well. Linley laughed as he spoke. Linley had made breakthroughs in both the fast and the slow aspects of the wind, allowing him to be even more graceful and even faster. Given that he was a dragon blood warrior to begin with, and had the Wind Shadow spell supporting him, Linley's speed was now a full level higher than when he had dueled with Hatesun. How rowdy! Linley saw one of the small cities of the Sherry Duchy from afar. The families of that town were all extremely active, with lamps lit everywhere. Not too long ago, on this night, 2 angels had descended. Naturally, these small cities were filled with so much excitement that nobody could fall asleep. All of them were even firmer in their faith towards the Radiant Church now. Linley saw quite clearly that the flags on the small cities had all changed, returning to the previous flag of the Sherry Duchy. As soon as the angels arrived, the lost territory was all reclaimed. Linley couldn't be bothered with the small cities. He flew straight towards the prefectural city of the Sherry Duchy. Soon, the man and his two magical beasts arrived in the air above the prefectural city of Sherry. By now, it was day, and the fresh morning air filled the lands. The dragon-formed Linley, Bibi, and Haru stood in the breezy air above the prefectural city of Sherry. Only 6 angels and Barker and his brothers. No other saints present. Linley's spiritual energy quickly scanned the entire area below. Just 6. Bibi seemed rather dissatisfied. By now, those 6 four-winged angels had sensed Linley's spiritual energy. They flew up into the sky at the same time, surrounded by that dazzling holy aura. It was as though 6 suns had suddenly risen into the skies. At the same time, lightning danced within Linley's eyes, and he barked coldly, "Kill all 6 of the angels." "Yes. Boss, Master." Bibi and Haru replied simultaneously as they transformed into 2 flashes of black light, charging towards those 6 four-winged angels. Book 10, Baruch, Chapter 14, Downfall. The citizens of the prefectural city of Sherry knew that there were angels within the governor's mansion, so many people were continuously watching the mansion. Seeing those 6 four-winged angels fly out into the air, they instantly began to shout jubilantly, which in turn attracted the attention of even more citizens. 6 four-winged angels. Creatures whom these commoners had tremendous faith in. What are those 3 black shadows? How dare they fight against angels? Many people also noticed that the 6 four-winged angels were currently engaged in a wild battle against 3 black shadows. In the blink of an eye, the citizens once more shouted in joy. Because those 3 shadows had already been completely surrounded by the 6 four-winged angels. Their movements are very orderly and almost perfectly choreographed in sync. Linley laughed calmly as he stared at his surroundings. Just then, Linley, Bibi, and Haru had charged forward to fight them, but unexpectedly, the angels had instantly scattered in multiple directions, setting up the angel battle formation in the blink of an eye, surrounding Linley, Bibi, and Haru within it. The 6 four-winged angels had turned into 6 points of this heavenly cage. Growl, Bibi sent out a claw swipe against one of the four-winged angels, but that pure white light only shuddered and didn't break. Linley secretly sighed in amazement. This angel battle formation truly was formidable. These were nothing more than 6 middle-stage four-winged angels, but the angel battle formation they created couldn't be broken by even Bibi, who dared to fight Hatesun's World Breaker attack head-on. This magical beast is very formidable. Be careful! One of the four-winged angels immediately shouted. At the same time, a brilliant light began to emanate forth from the four-winged angels, blasting forth towards the skies. When it reached a certain height, that eye-piercing brilliance suddenly exploded, temporarily blinding the countless citizens of the prefectural city of Sherry. Immediately, the citizens began rubbing their eyes, trying their best to stare upwards at the battle. Informing Asano, Linley said to the 6 surrounding angels. "HRMPH Linley. This time, you will definitely die." One of the angels said with certainty. "Soon, the Lord Praetor shall come, and you won't have the chance to flee." "So it really is Asano." Linley's gaze turned cold. "You think you can defeat the Lord Praetor?" The 6 four-winged angels were very cold and arrogant. They knew exactly how terrifyingly powerful Asano was. The faces of the 6 four-winged angels turned cold, while at the same time, a thick, powerful blast of holy light was transferred to one of the four-winged angels. Linley knew that this was one of the powerful attacks of this formation. Shaking his head, Linley let out a cold chuckle. Whoosh! Linley suddenly appeared in front of one of the four-winged angels, and that four-winged angel's body immediately began to glow with divine light. How laughable! That four-winged angel was very confident. According to their reports, Linley's power was only on par with Hatesun. It wasn't greater than that of the magical beast named Bibi. If even BB couldn't break the angel battle formation, how could Linley? A hint of satirizing amusement appeared in Linley's eyes. If he wasn't confident, how could he have let himself be trapped within this angel battle formation? Bang! The adamantine heavy sword struck against the protective light. A terrifyingly powerful surge of vibrational force transferred directly into the four-winged angel's body. Those vibrations actually caused the internal organs of the four-winged angel to instantly rupture and turn into a pile of soft mud. Even Hatesun would have been badly injured after taking this blow, to say nothing of the angel. The face of that previously very confident angel instantly turned ashen pale, while fresh blood spurted forth from his nose, ears, and mouth. In an instant, his eyes turned dim, and then like a pile of soft mud, he fell down from the skies, smashing into the ground like a ruptured sandbag and kicking up a cloud of dust. Profound truths of the earth, 150 layered waves? This was Linley's limit. Last time, it was 6 angels also. And this time, once again, Linley laughed coldly. The angel battle formation is useless against me. But unfortunately, those 6 angels who died last time didn't have the chance to tell you. The power of this 150 layered waves attack was far stronger than when he had previously competed against Hatesun. Even someone as defensively powerful as Hatesun probably wouldn't be able to take 2 of these hits head on. How is this possible? The other 5 four-winged angels were still in a state of shock. They hadn't felt much of an impact against their holy power, but their comrade had died. And at this time, BB and Haru instantly transformed into streaks of black lightning. Scree! An ear-piercing, heaven-shattering screech. Slash! A four-winged angel wanted to dodge, but BB, after having his already terrifying speed enhanced by the wind shadow spell, was simply too fast. The angel simply couldn't fight against him at all. Those sharp claws tore directly into the angel's chest and ripped out his heart. BB, with just 3 claws, sent 3 four-winged angels falling from the skies, their blood covering the ground. Bang! Haru killed one of the four-winged angels as well. Whoosh! Linley's body seemed to have turned into the wind itself, as he flickered everywhere. Sometimes, his adamantine heavy sword moved fast, while sometimes, it moved slowly. In front of the adamantine heavy sword, a spatial edge actually appeared, chopping down at the head of one of the four-winged angels. The four-winged angel, terrified, tried to dodge, but it was chopped into 2 halves. Profound truths of the wind, tempos of the wind. Using the adamantine heavy sword with the profound truths of the wind is indeed somewhat weaker. Linley chuckled calmly as he looked down at the corpse on the ground. The profound truths of the earth and the profound truths of the wind could be used with any weapon, even fists. Only, the level of effectiveness would vary. If the adamantine heavy sword were used to display the tempos of the wind attack, it would only be roughly half as powerful as the blood-violet sword. The power was roughly the same as using a knife hand chop. Although all of this took a while to describe. In truth, when Linley used the profound truths of the earth to kill one of the four-winged angels, it happened in the blink of an eye. And then, the other 5 four-winged angels were killed by Linley, BB, and Haru. 6 angel corpses lay scattered on the ground. How is this? Impossible. The countless citizens of the prefectural city of Sherry all stared. The angels whom they venerated in their hearts above all other creatures. The messengers of the Lord. But the 6 four-winged angels had died in the blink of an eye by those 3 shadows. Linley's body was covered with a roiling layer of azurish black battle chi, and he floated high in the air. The citizens of the prefectural city of Sherry stared up at this fiend. You actually believe in the radiant sovereign? What a joke. Linley's voice seemed to shatter the heavens like thunder. The teachings of the Radiant Church are nothing more than a type of deception. In this world, don't entrust anything to a god. Rely on yourself. If you are strong, you can even kill an angel as easily as you can raise your hand. The citizens of the prefectural city of Sherry were somewhat baffled. The messengers of the Lord. Those 6 four-winged angels had been killed, just like that. According to the teachings of the Radiant Church, nothing could block the glory of the Lord, and in the face of the messengers whom the Lord sent, anything blocking them would be turned to ash. But today, the ones which were turned to ash were the angels. Who is this person? Many people in the prefectural city of Sherry were quietly whispering this question to each other. Remember, my name is Linley. Linley's voice echoed non-stop in the prefectural city of Sherry, and then Linley, Bibi, and Haru flew into the governor's mansion. The citizens of the prefectural city of Sherry remained in a stunned state. Linley, it's actually Linley. In the Yulon continent, there was only one expert named Linley. It was the Grand Master Sculptor, the Genius Magus, the Dragon Blood Warrior, Linley Baruch. Ever since he knew that he would have to fight head-on against the Radiant Church, Linley had decided to no longer conceal his identity. The reputation of a peak stage saint was extremely alluring, and so Linley immediately proclaimed his identity. Most likely, some of the other duchies would no longer dare to resist and might even immediately surrender to him. Boom! Asano was flying at high speed towards the prefectural city of Sherry. I didn't expect that Linley would head to the prefectural city of Sherry. I thought he had fled. Asano had badly injured Barker and Boone, then sent people to lock them up with Gates and the other 2 in the prefectural city of Sherry, then headed towards Black Dirt City in the night. But in the area around Black Dirt City, Asano couldn't find a single saint-level expert. Linley ran away. This was Asano's first reaction. He believed that the Black Cloud Panther had mentally contacted Linley, and Linley had been so terrified that he immediately fled. Asano was quite disappointed. He had no choice but to return to the prefectural city of Moat. But unexpectedly, just as the sky was beginning to brighten, a dazzling burst of light could be seen from the direction of the prefectural city of Sherry. It was a signal. The signal of Linley's appearance. Although Linley is powerful, when those 6 four-winged angels join forces and set up the angel battle formation, even if they cannot kill Linley, they should be able to stay alive. Asano said to himself. The reason he had arranged for 6 four-winged angels to be there was so that they could set up the angel battle formation. After all, they were 6 four-winged angels. To the Radiant Church, they were still extremely valuable. When Linden and the other 5 had died, the Radiant Church hadn't minded, because Linden and the others were only of the 9th rank, after all. Only when going all out could they have the power of a saint. The Radiant Church had quite a few of those low-level angels. But these 6 four-winged angels were another matter altogether. To find bodies capable of holding the power of 4-winged angels was fairly difficult. Those bodies had to be of the 7th rank in physical power alone. Only those bodies could allow 4-winged angels to descend into them and for their full power to be put on display. Bodies of the 7th rank, the Radiant Church only acquired a few despite thousands of years of searching. I've arrived. Asano saw the distant prefectural city of Sherry and instantly flew towards the governor's mansion. Asano's spiritual energy encapsulated the entire prefectural city of Sherry like a tempest, but his face quickly changed. In the blink of an eye, he arrived in the air above the governor's mansion. He clearly saw that on the main walkway in front of the governor's mansion. 6 corpses. All 6 of the 4-winged angels died. Asano's heart contracted tightly. Even when the king of the mountain range of magical beasts, Dalin, had led his saint-level magical beasts to attack the city of Fenley, the Radiant Church hadn't lost many saint-level experts. But today, in the blink of an eye, they had lost 6 four-winged angels. Asano's dark eyes flashed with cold light, and the temperature around him dropped precipitously. The blood on the corpses of those 6 four-winged angels actually began to turn to ice. Linley, get out. Asano's cold voice shook the heavens. Those citizens of the prefectural city of Sherry, who had just been agitated by Linley, now found to their shock that yet another figure with dark golden eyes was standing in the air above the governor's mansion. A challenge to Linley. Many people felt their hearts tremble. They had simply been overstimulated too much today. First, angels had descended, and then, the angels had been killed by Linley's forces. But now, yet another saint had come to challenge Linley. In their entire lives, they had never seen such a constant stream of exciting battles. Linley, are you only capable of hiding inside the governor's mansion? Do you think I am unable to find you? Asano's voice contained a hint of extreme rage. In the past, he wanted to kill Linley because Linley was a threat. But now, Linley had killed 6 four-winged angels. When had the Radiant Church ever suffered such a loss? If Linley was a deity-level expert, then the church would only be able to swallow their anger. But Linley's power was inferior to Asano's. Hide! A cold voice rang out from the city governor's mansion. Asano, you think too highly of yourself. Regular, stable footsteps could be heard. Linley, dressed in a long, deep blue robe, casually walked to the courtyard with Bibi and Haru by his side. Those Barker brothers were behind Linley as well. They formed a straight line. Linley stared upwards at the mid-air Asano. Asano stared downwards at Linley as well. Their two gazes met, and as they did, it seemed as though the space between them began to shudder and rumble. Within several hundred meters around Asano, the temperature had reached to an extremely low level. Extreme cold. Deathly silence. In this area, it was as though Asano was in total, complete control. Whoosh! Suddenly, a wind arose in this area. The origin of the wind was Linley. Linley's deep blue robe and his long hair fluttered in the wild wind, which twisted upwards towards Asano. But Asano was like a boulder upon which the waves broke themselves. He didn't move at all. You killed 6 four-winged angels of my church. Today, I must kill you, and also let your soul forever be tormented by the flames of hell. Asano's voice seemed to be as cold as a dagger, piercing into everyone's ears. Linley stared up at Asano. His lips curved into a smile. If you are so tough, then come on over. Book 10, Baruch, Chapter 15, The Fierce Battle Against Asano. Black draconic scales. Fierce, sharp spikes. They all quickly emerged, covering Linley's entire body as he dragon formed. The blue robe that had been covering Linley's body was torn to shreds by the ferocious battle chi, and pieces of it fluttered around Linley. Go! Linley's dark golden eyes stared at Asano. Instantly, those countless pieces of blue cloth suddenly shot towards Asano like arrows. As they did, Bibi, who had been directly behind Linley, suddenly disappeared, crossing those 100 meters. In just the blink of an eye, the half-meter-long Bibi suddenly appeared in front of Asano. Shkree! The ear-piercing screech tore through the skies, while at the same time, Bibi's sharp claws transformed into a fierce storm which tore down towards Asano. Crackle! Asano's body immediately exploded with a black flame which emanated from within his body. The black fire surrounded his fist, which clashed directly against Bibi's sharp claws. Bang! Bang! Eardrum-rupturing collision sounds could be heard repeatedly. Swish! Asano quickly retreated 100 meters in an instant. Bibi stared angrily at Asano. Asano, if you are so tough, don't run. Just as Asano opened his mouth and was about to speak, a tempest suddenly appeared in front of him, while at the same time, a scale-covered draconic claw slashed through the air, chopping towards him like a sharp blade. Asano once more dodged backwards. Only now did Linley reveal himself fully. Standing in mid-air, the azurish black energy surrounding him, he said, Asano, why do you keep on retreating? Didn't you say that you were going to kill me? Linley's voice was very low. His eyes flashing like cold daggers, he was a heart-shaking sight. Boss, those black flames Asano uses are very powerful. but they shouldn't be able to break your pulse guard defense. Bibi's voice rang out in Linley's mind. I know. Asano hasn't used his best techniques yet. Linley was very careful. With a flip of his hand, Asano retrieved a pitch-black, narrow, and long sword. Asano stared coldly at Linley and Bibi, the man, and his magical beast. Just now, I wanted to see how strong you were. Indeed, you are worthy of me drawing my blade. Linley and Bibi on one side. Asano on the other. Staring at each other. The citizens of the prefectural city of Sherry stared with bated breath at this battle, the likes of which Sherry had never seen since its founding. Let's go. Linley's voice rang out in Bibi's mind, and the two of them almost simultaneously charged towards Asano. The adamantine heavy sword in Linley's hand radiated with azurish light, chopping down agilely at Asano. Seeing Bibi and Linley charge towards him, Asano instantly came to a judgment: this magical beast called Bibi is even faster than me. This Linley is a hair faster than me as well. Our intelligence was wrong. Linley's body seemed to drift forward gently as though it was very slow, but also as though it was very fast. It was extremely bizarre. The deeper his insights into the elemental laws of the wind had become, the faster Linley had become as well. Bibi was the first to arrive in front of Asano. Asano just stood there in mid-air, not moving at all, allowing Bibi to claw at him. But the black katana in Asano's hand suddenly flashed, then chopped down against Bibi's claws. Clang! A metallic ringing sound. Asano's body was sent flying back nearly 100 meters, but Bibi stood there, not moving at all. Bibi. Linley had a bad feeling. Boss, be careful. His katana attacks contain a spiritual attack. Bibi warned him. Just then, my head went dizzy for a moment. Linley grew nervous. Spiritual attack. However, from what Linley could tell, this Asano was a warrior saint. Most likely, his spiritual energy wasn't too powerful. This was much like Olivier, who despite being capable of spiritual attacks, only had the spiritual energy of a magus of the 8th rank. Thus, his spiritual attack wasn't too dangerous to people with powerful souls. My spiritual energy has reached the 9th rank. I should be able to take it. Not hesitating at all, Linley once more struck out with his adamantine heavy sword, while Bibi, shaking his head a few times, let out another screech and charged towards Asano. Asano's body flickered as he actually moved forward to face Linley. Whoosh! The adamantine heavy sword flowed gracefully through the air, slashing down at Asano in an instant. Asano's black katana seemed to pierce through space itself, coming at an incomparably monstrous speed as it chopped against Linley's adamantine heavy sword. The adamantine heavy sword and the black katana clashed. Linley's body was sent flying backwards, and he shook his head in pain. Rumble, a bizarre, terrifying vibration had passed through the black katana and attacked Asano. It had pierced straight through Asano's protective layer of infernal black flames and directly attacked Asano's internal organs. Those terrifying, powerful vibrations caused all of Asano's organs to shudder. Ugh! Asano spat out a mouthful of blood. Asano stared at Linley in disbelief. He didn't expect that he would have suffered a serious injury in just his first exchange of blows with Linley. If this happens another time, I probably won't be able to take it. This Linley's attack is too bizarre and too terrifying. My defenses are useless. Asano now realized how terrifying Linley was. I didn't expect that I would have to use my ultimate technique to deal with Linley. Only now did Linley's head feel a bit better. What a terrifying spiritual attack. Linley's heart shook. It didn't just attack, it also possessed an illusionary, mesmerizing power. Die! Bibi charged fiercely at Asano, the tips of his sharp fangs biting down at Asano, but Bibi actually passed straight through Asano. Asano was still in his original position. Two of them. Linley stared in astonishment. At this moment, there were two Asanos standing in mid-air. And they definitely weren't illusions. Both were real. Doppelgangers. Linley couldn't believe it. The two Asanos suddenly moved, transforming into four Asanos. This was totally different from Oliver's technique, which relied on high-speed movement to create illusions. All of these four Asanos were real. Linley's spiritual energy could detect all four of these Asanos and sense their auras. What in the world is this? Linley couldn't dare believe it. The four Asanos stood in mid-air, staring coldly at Linley. The four Asanos each said one phrase at a time. Linley, you really do have some skill. You forced me to use this technique. Just then, you saw that when you attack me, you will find that my body is illusory, but when I attack you, you will find that my body is real. In other words, I can attack you, but you can't attack me. Your death is inevitable. The four Asanos all flew towards Linley at high speed. Die. Linley flew at high speed towards one of them, but suddenly, Linley utilized his adamantine heavy sword to chop at a different one. Profound truths of the earth, 150 layered waves? However, it was as though he had hit nothing but air. Linley's adamantine heavy sword passed straight through this Asano, not having harmed him at all. But then, this Asano suddenly chopped towards Linley, and Linley quickly used his adamantine heavy sword to block. Bang! Linley was knocked flying back, and his head felt dizzy yet again. How is this possible? How can someone possibly have such a freakish ability? Linley didn't dare to believe it. Even when dealing with Fane or Desri, Linley hadn't had such a hopeless feeling. He couldn't attack his opponent, but the opponent could easily attack him. What the hell was this? Asano, don't believe your own lies. Bibi's voice rang out. Linley turned to look at Bibi. Bibi's little eyes were staring at Asano. Others are unable to attack you. If four people simultaneously attacked your four bodies, tell me, would they be able to attack you? Bibi seemed to be quite familiar with this technique. All four Asanos were wielding that black katana. It seems you understand this technique. Asano laughed coldly. Of course. Don't forget. I am a darkness element magical beast. Bibi's body suddenly flickered, and then split into two as well. The two Bibis stood there in mid-air. Asano was stunned as well, and Linley was also awestruck. The Barker brothers were watching all this from below. What the hell? Hazer looked at Gates. Gates shook his head, lost. This battle isn't one in which the likes of us can get involved in. Let's just watch. Linley flew towards the two Bibis, while Bibi said to Linley, Boss, there is a relatively basic darkness-style attack known as the stealth walk technique. Once the stealth walk technique reaches an extremely high level, it can be transformed into the shadow shape technique. The shadow shape technique causes one's body to merge with the shadows themselves. However, there is a level even beyond the shadow shape technique which is known as the shadow shape doppelganger technique. This is something which only saints can train in. However, Asano's shadow shape doppelganger technique is more powerful than mine. Bibi said. So this is known as the shadow shape doppelganger technique. Asano frowned. You didn't know. Bibi looked at Asano. Asano was silent. In truth, while Asano had been training in the elemental laws of darkness, he slowly managed to develop this doppelganger technique. As for its name, he had casually decided to simply call it the doppelganger technique. Shadow shape doppelganger technique. The basic underpinning of the shadow shape doppelganger technique was to create a shadow from another shadow, and then allow the real body to change position at any time from amongst the shadow bodies. Just then, when Linley had attacked one of the doppelgangers, Asano had switched places with one of his other shadows, and then when he attacked Linley, he had switched back. This technique was very powerful, but in the face of the God realm technique of deities, it was still useless. "Bibi, when did you learn this technique?" Linley asked mentally. Darkness elemental magical beasts are born knowing some darkness-style spells and special attacks. Only upon reaching the saint level was I capable of utilizing this shadow-shaped doppelganger technique. Unfortunately, I'm not as good at it as Asano. Bibi said resignedly. Magical beasts were born with some special, magical skills. The more powerful the beast, the more powerful the magic. Linley secretly sighed as well. And so what if you know it? You will still die. The four Asanos moved at the same time. The target, Linley. The four Asanos attacked together, and Linley quickly flew back. 1 against 4, how could he fight them? He could block one, but the real body would then be in one of the other 3. If he fought head-on, he would definitely lose. Shkree! As Linley retreated, the 2 BBs screeched fiercely as they charged forward. The 2 BBs were freakishly fast. The 2 BBs engaged in a wild battle against those 4 Asanos, but since Asano could choose between those 4 shadow doppelgangers, he could dodge much more easily than BB. Bang! The 2 BBs flew back. "BB, quick, come over to me. Listen to my order." Linley was currently standing in one of the streets of the prefectural city of Shiri. Standing on the ground, his head was upraised as he stared at Asano in mid-air, quietly awaiting Asano to come over. BB was somewhat puzzled, but he still flew over towards Linley at high speed. "Boss, what do you want to do?" BB asked suspiciously. But when BB heard Linley's mental response, his eyes instantly lit up, and he once more scurried atop Linley's shoulders. Linley and BB just stood there on the ground, staring up at the 4 Asanos, not afraid at all. "HRM? What trick do you have up your sleeves?" Seeing how confident Linley was, Asano was rather suspicious. But when he scanned the area with his spiritual energy, he found that Linley and BB didn't have any backup at all, nor were there any apparent traps. In addition, for someone like him, an expert who trained in the shadow-shaped doppelganger technique, how could he be afraid of a trap? "HRMPH," Asano sneered coldly. No longer hesitating, the 4 Asanos simultaneously charged down towards Linley. Book 10, Baruch, Chapter 16, Baruch. Linley wielded the adamantine heavy sword in one hand, and blood violet in the other. He stood there in the middle of the street, and BB was on his shoulders, not moving. The man and the beast stared as Asano charged over, but when Asano reached within 10 meters of Linley, he suddenly paused. There was a plot here. Asano stared at Linley, who seemed brimming with confidence. He grew a bit nervous. What sort of nasty trick does this punk have up his sleeve? "What, are you afraid?" Linley, his 2 swords in his hands, stared at Asano. "If you are afraid, then just roll the F***ck out of my city. It's fine. I won't chase you." Linley's words made Asano so angry, he could vomit blood. "Chase me." Asano secretly cursed Linley in his mind. It was clear and apparent that he, Asano, had the advantage. But Asano was born cautious. He truly began to wonder if Linley did indeed have some sort of nasty trick up his sleeve. But seeing how confident Linley was looking, Asano suddenly thought, wait, can it be that Linley is just pretending to be like this to try and scare me away? Asano carefully inspected Linley. If Linley really had some sort of ultimate attack, he would have used it long ago. Why feign weakness? In addition, if one has an ace up one's sleeve, one wouldn't be so blatantly self-confident. Being this confident is as good as telling someone you have a technique lying in wait. Asano laughed coldly in his mind. What is true is false, what is false is true. This punk is trying to play me. I refuse to believe he is able to wound me. Why are you hesitating, Lord Praetor? What happened to your usual awe-inspiring presence and decisiveness? Linley mocked coldly. Asano stared at Linley's dark golden eyes. He sneered, "Punk, I still." Halfway through his words, the four Asanos simultaneously attacked Linley with terrifying speed. But right at that moment, rumble! Within 100 meters, the land quickly became covered with a layer of earthen light, and Linley and Bibi's body became covered with it as well. Instacast, supergravity field, rank 7. A supergravity field of the 7th rank would cause the strength of the gravity affecting one's body to instantly quadruple. This gravity wouldn't just impact the muscles, it would also affect the organs and the blood vessels. Even powerful opponents would be slowed when suddenly affected by this. To a saint, if you threw a boulder weighing 10,000 tons at him, he would easily shatter it with the flick of his finger, not harmed by it at all. But the supergravity field was different. For example, the quadruple gravity wasn't something as simple as just adding a few hundred tons of weight. It could cause the flow of blood in a person's body to slow and make breathing more difficult. Weak people, under a quadruple gravity field, might even die in an instant. Even saints would have their physical functions impacted. Kill. After instacasting the supergravity field as well as the nullifying magic on himself and Bibi, Linley charged forward towards Asano with Bibi by his side in a simultaneous attack. One Linley and two Bibis arrived at the four slower Asanos. The adamantine heavy sword once more chopped down, while at the same time, Blood Violet chopped through the air as well. Bang! Asano was knocked flying, and all four of the Asanos merged into one. A hint of blood could be seen dribbling from his mouth. He had dodged Linley's attack, but he wasn't able to dodge the two Bibis' attacks. Linley didn't hesitate at all, charging directly towards Asano, but Asano instantly transformed into four people as well, while at the same time, his body began to emit a large amount of black flame. The ground around him was burned to nothing, and Linley's supergravity field was wiped out as well. I didn't expect you to have this sort of technique. Asano stared angrily at Linley. However, this technique of yours is useless. Useless. Linley stood on the ground confidently. The four Asanos once more charged forward at high speed, while at virtually the same instant, Linley's surrounding area once more appeared to be covered by that earthen light, supergravity field of the 7th rank. The four Asanos paused slightly, and then, with a bam, the black flame began to burn, once more wiping away the supergravity field. Asano's eyes were filled with fury. It is useless, Linley. My body is totally capable of getting accustomed to this level of supergravity. Bibi, let's do it. Linley and Bibi both charged towards Asano, while at the same time, Linley once more cast the supergravity field. Only this time, it was a supergravity field of the 6th rank. Asano had already been prepared for quadruple gravity, but when he suddenly became affected by double gravity instead, his movements couldn't help but falter a bit. Bang! Profound truths of the wind, tempos of the wind. Blood Violet seemed both fast and slow, and that spatial edge appeared on the edge of Blood Violet. The edge of the sword chopped down directly towards Asano, and was actually able to cut through his infernal flames, sending him flying back once again. A wound had appeared on Asano's chest. Asano had dodged Linley's adamantine heavy sword and the attacks of the two Bibis, but he had been injured by Blood Violet. How can it be so powerful? The look on Asano's face changed. Just then, he had nowhere to run. Because all four of his shadows were attacking Linley, Linley naturally attacked too, while the other two were easily attacked by the two Bibis, who was faster than them. No matter what, he would end up taking a hit. He didn't dare take the adamantine heavy sword head on, and he didn't want to take a hit from Bibi's claws either. In the end, he had chosen Blood Violet. However, that Blood Violet sword seemed to be even more formidable than Bibi's claws by a whisker. According to our intelligence, the attacks of that violet sword aren't very powerful though. Asano couldn't believe it. Indeed, when he dueled with Hatesun, Linley's tempos of the wind was not too powerful. But now that he had broken through to a higher level of comprehension towards both the fast and the slow aspects of the elemental laws of the wind, then combined them in his tempos of the wind, the power had been raised by far more than just one level, it was raised by at least 2 levels, or even more. Asano, didn't you want to kill me? Linley seemed very arrogant. Attack! The demonic-looking Linley and the enlarged BB charged wildly towards Asano. As they did, Linley instacast the supergravity field again, filling the area once more with that earthen glow. Bang! In the blink of an eye, Asano's infernal black flames once more wiped away the supergravity field. But for Linley, this sort of low-level technique was something he could use 100 or 200 times without exhausting his mage force. And more importantly, Linley had the Coiling Dragon ring and only needed to use 1/6 of the mage force to begin with. Supergravity field of the 7th and 6th ranks. Linley was using them on a rotational basis. Not good. The constantly changing gravitational power caused even Asano's attacks to become less coordinated. The supergravity field of the 6th rank increased gravity by 2 times. There was a big difference between it and the supergravity field of the 7th rank. These two spells with huge differences in power caused Asano to constantly be unable to get accustomed to the local gravity. It was as though an ordinary person, when walking, would suddenly feel gravity disappear, and then he would have to walk while weightless. He wouldn't be used to it. Same line of reasoning. Sometimes, supergravity fields weren't necessarily the stronger the better. With no way to dodge, Asano was struck viciously again by BB's 2 claws and was sent flying. With a crunching sound, Asano's rib had broken. This time, Asano didn't fly into the air, nor did he dare to go closer to the ground. After having learned this lesson, Asano didn't dare to get near the ground again as he remained in mid-air. I didn't know that different supergravity fields could be used at this level. Asano said. He had been badly hurt. After being struck by Linley's adamantine heavy sword and the blood-violet sword, he had then been struck twice by BB's claws now. BB, let's charge. He's badly injured and not in great shape. Asano didn't hesitate at all. His 4 shadows instantly flew at high speed towards the south, paying no attention to BB who was behind him. Perhaps BB would be able to catch him, but he could change between the 4 shadows non-stop. He had no reason to fear BB. But if Linley were to charge over, perhaps Asano would be the one to injure Linley instead. After all, in mid-air, Linley would not be able to utilize the supergravity field. His speed would then be inferior to Asano's. Wasn't he just asking for trouble if he did that? At this time, Barker and his brothers came running out of the city governor's mansion. That Asano escaped. Aang sighed. His lordship and BB beat Asano so bad he ran away. Gates was excited. The brothers carefully inspected the streets in front of the city governor's manor, and instantly, they were speechless. The bodies of the 6 angels had already been frozen into blocks of ice. Near Linley's position, the ground itself was a full meter lower. In addition, another meter of earth had been burned by Asano's infernal flames and destroyed by it. Linley was currently at the end of that depressed patch of land. Lord! Lord! Barker and his brothers ran excitedly towards Linley, while Linley transformed back into his human form. With a flip of his hand, he withdrew a robe from his interspatial ring. BB landed on Linley's shoulders, and Linley let out a long sigh. Lord, we won. Barker said excitedly. The other 4 stared at Linley with excitement as well. A hint of laughter was on Linley's face. He stared towards the south. We didn't truly win. What a pity. The attack power of each strike of my rippling wind isn't powerful enough. If it was more powerful, I would be able to hold off Asano by myself. The rippling wind could instantly create 10 million swords. It was the absolute peak of speed, but each attack wasn't too powerful. If Linley were to use this attack against the 4 Asanos, he wouldn't be able to harm them at all. Instead, he would be the one to be wounded. Tempos of the wind and rippling wind are two different concepts. There is no way to merge them. The only thing I can do is infuse the rippling wind with the insights I have gained into the fast aspect of the elemental laws of the wind. By then, the power of the rippling wind would increase by another level. Linley still remembered Higginson's sword technique. It had been so fast that it had distorted and folded space itself, and it carried a terrifying penetrative power. If Linley was able to reach that level and use his rippling wind technique, then the equivalent of countless illusionary void swords would attack his opponents. Although the attack of each sword would still be a bit lower, it would be incredibly powerful nonetheless. Me too. BB muttered. If my shadow-shaped doppelganger technique could reach the level of splitting into 4 shadows, I would be able to fight him by myself. Barker and his brothers stared at Linley and BB, the man, and his magical beast. They were speechless. Lord, you aren't even 30 yet. Yet you are so powerful. Barker finally said loudly. Linley and BB glanced at each other, then laughed. Good point. One couldn't be too greedy. Linley was on the fast track to understanding both the elemental laws of the wind and the elemental laws of the earth. He wasn't like some people who were bottlenecked or stuck. He should be overjoyed. Barker, immediately send people to reclaim the Sherry Duchy. Here in the prefectural city of Sherry, most likely those soldiers won't face a single bit of resistance. Linley was quite confident. After that massive battle with the angels and the battle just now, who in the prefectural city of Sherry would dare to resist? Yes, Lord. Per our plans, since we are fighting head-on against the Radiant Church, then we will make our affiliations public. 10 days from now, we will openly proclaim to the world that we have founded a duchy, and the name of the duchy is the Baruch Duchy. Linley announced. Barker, Ank, Hazer, Boone, and Gates all said with respectful excitement, Yes, Lord. The battle at the prefectural city of Sherry had determined that for now, the Radiant Church was not capable of suppressing Linley. Linley had slaughtered 6 four-winged angels, and then forced Praetor Asano to flee. This victory, once announced by Zisler and the others, quickly spread across the entire area. The morale of Linley's side was like a rainbow. The Sherry Duchy no longer had any hint of resistance. It once more returned to Linley's control. Black Dirt City. Within a garden. Lord Linley, the Western and Duchy immediately surrendered to us after we said a few threatening words to them. The duchies to the east are a bit more stubborn. Zisler laughed. Linley's reputation was extremely useful. A simple threat had caused an entire duchy to capitulate. How could they not surrender though? What, would they fight against a saint? After all, the most powerful combatants in a duchy were usually of the 8th rank only, and a very few duchies had warriors of the 9th rank. As for saints, how could a saint stay in a duchy? Zisler. Linley instructed. In 3 days, I will found the Baruch Duchy. How about this? Send some people to one of the branches of the Dawson conglomerate. Tell them immediately send a message to Delia in the Yulan Empire. Tell her about the founding of the Baruch Duchy. Zisler assented. Linley stood there in the garden, staring towards the south. Delia. I've completed my side of our agreement. So, when will you come? Book 10, Baruch, Chapter 17, Homecoming. Asano's study. Lord Praetor. The golden-haired middle-aged man called out softly. Ever since Asano had been defeated and sent fleeing by Linley and BB, Asano had become even grimmer and colder. His subordinates didn't even dare to get close to him. Asano raised his head, staring at him with those cold eyes. The middle-aged man squeezed out a smile. Lord Praetor, how should we deal with Linley? Linley. Asano let out a cold sneer. The middle-aged man's heart quailed. He could sense the temperature in the room drop. Asano said coldly, immediately send someone to deliver the news to the Sacred Isle and inform the Holy Emperor. If Linley is not eradicated, then in the future, if the Radiant Church is eliminated, it would most likely have been done by Linley. Asano was truly frightened by Linley's rate of improvement. Last year, in August, when Linley dueled with Hatesun, Linley's strength was just on par with Hatesun. But now, in the following April, just 8 months later, in 8 short months, Linley's power had increased by an astonishing amount. In the past, that violet sword was incapable of harming Hatesun. But now, it harmed him. Asano. He's not yet 30. Asano's heart was filled with worry. Yes, Lord Praetor. I will immediately send someone conveying your words to the Holy Emperor. The middle-aged man hurriedly said. Asano sighed in his heart. If in the past, the people we had killed and sacrificed to the Radiant Sovereign didn't include Linley's mother, then perhaps Linley would have become the central pillar for the Radiant Church, capable of helping us overthrow the cult of shadows. But it was too late. Linley and the Radiant Church were now openly opposed. The anarchic lands. Currently, there were 3 primary factions. One was the Radiant Church. One was the cult of shadows. And the final one was Linley's. Because of the battle at the prefectural city of Sherry Duchy, the Radiant Church was now quite silent and kept its head low. The cult of shadows wouldn't interfere. They wanted to see Linley and the Radiant Church continue to fight against each other. Naturally, they too, would just keep their head low and watch. As long as Linley didn't antagonize them, they definitely wouldn't antagonize Linley. In this sort of situation, Linley's side was the most vigorous and expanded the most, and was now preparing the festivities for the founding of the Baruch Duchy. Currently, the Baruch Duchy had 3 prefectural cities, 19 small cities, and led over 20 million citizens. This sort of large faction was actually about the size of half of a regular kingdom. This was an extremely large duchy. And Linley? His legend was once more sung about in songs by the countless masses. His list of myths now included destroying 6 four-winged angels and defeating the praetor of the ecclesiastical court of the Radiant Church. Linley's fame continued to grow, causing many warriors and magi who worshipped Linley to head to the Baruch Duchy in a wave. They wanted to fight for Linley, the imperial capital of the Yulan Empire. Master Longhouse residence. Delia was in the courtyard as always, soaking up the rays of the sun and enjoying the fresh air while studying Master Longhouse notes on magic. Miss Delia, the Dawson conglomerate's representative is here. A guard ran over and reported to her. Delia's eyes instantly lit up. I, Big Yellow, am willing to bet that it is a letter from Linley. The world bear next to Delia chortled. While Delia glanced at him sideways. She said, "Quick, let him come in." "Yes." The guard said respectfully. A short while later, a beaming, middle-aged man entered the courtyard. Seeing Delia, he immediately withdrew a letter from his robes. "Miss Delia, here is your letter. It comes from the anarchic lands." This wasn't his first time delivering a letter to Delia. As soon as Delia saw this person, she knew that the letter came from Linley. "Miss Delia, I bid you farewell." The middle-aged man was extremely polite. Delia laughed in excitement. After the man left, she immediately opened the letter and began to read. The nearby world bear craned his big head over to sneak a peek as well. Delia couldn't help but turn and glance at him. "Big Yellow, I'm getting angry." The world bear immediately let out a couple of deep, awkward chuckles. Delia laughed as well, then continued to read. But as she did, Delia's body began to tremble. "Wonderful! Wonderful!" Delia was so excited that she immediately rose to her feet. She could feel her heart racing and her entire body was beginning to be covered in sweat. "Delia, why are you so happy?" the world bear asked puzzledly. Even the nearby wild thunderstorm hawk stared towards Delia in confusion. Just at this moment, a middle-aged man appeared in the courtyard. It was the Win-style Grand Mega Saint, Master Longhouse. Teacher. Delia said respectfully. Master Longhouse laughed as he looked at Delia. Hatton tells me that you received a letter from Linley. It seems there is some joyous occasion. Delia stared at the world bear, who began to laugh delightedly. Teacher. Delia was still quite excited. It is Linley's letter. He tells me that the Baruch Duchy is going to be founded this year, April 16th. That's today. Linley is finally founding his duchy. This is wonderful. Master Longhouse knew everything there was to know about Delia's affairs. As happy as that? Is it because you're about to be able to see Linley? Master Longhouse teased. Delia's face had turned red. Was it because she was embarrassed, or was it because she was too excited? All right, teacher. I can't talk right now. I have to go home first and tell my parents about this. According to what they previously said, now that Linley has erected his duchy, they shouldn't be against me and Linley being together anymore. Delia said. Master Longhouse nodded. Fine. Go. Delia repeatedly nodded. She immediately rode the wild thunderstorm Hawk Perry and left her teacher's residence. Watching Delia fly away, Master Longhouse shook his head and sighed. Delia's father won't be so easily swayed, I'm afraid. Within the Leon clan's residence, De La Leon and his wife were both quite puzzled. Why had Delia pulled them here to this quiet room to discuss something? Father, mother, there's something I need to tell you. Delia took a deep breath. Delia's mother started to laugh. What sort of joyous event is it that has you all worked up like this? Delia began to laugh as well. Right. Father, mother, didn't you say that if Linley and I were together, it would lower His Imperial Majesty's faith in our clan? But now, Linley has erected his own duchy in the anarchic lands. Erected a duchy. De La Leon and his wife looked at each other. Delia, my dearest daughter, I hope you aren't lying to your father. After all, I've never heard of this. De La Leon said. Delia secretly laughed. Linley's Baruch Duchy was being founded today. It would take at least 10 days or half a month for the news to spread several thousand kilometers away to the Yulan Empire. It would be a strange thing if her father did know about it. It is true. I just have some advance information. Linley's duchy is named the Baruch Duchy. Delia said with certainty. De La Leon and his wife exchanged glances. It's true. Father, mother, can it be that you don't believe me? Delia frowned. De La Leon chuckled while shaking his head. I believe you. But why must you marry Linley? Although Linley has founded a duchy, can being the wife of a Grand Duke compare to being the Empress of an empire? Delia's smile froze. Father, what are you trying to say? Delia's face was more serious than it had ever been. De La Leon stretched his hand out, placing it on Delia's shoulder. Sighing, he said, Delia, it is true that Linley is a saint and is powerful. But Emperor Rand is the emperor of our Yulan Empire. If you marry him, that would be wonderful as well. And, it would be very beneficial for our entire clan. Delia looked at her father, her eyes filled with disbelief. Father! Are you still that father who loved me? Delia's voice had turned hoarse. De La Leon was startled, and his wife was taken aback as well. Father! I love Linley, love him very much. But this isn't because he is a saint. When I met him at the Ernst Institute, I fell in love with him. Was he a saint back then? Why do you have this sort of idea in your mind about the type of person your daughter is? Also, ever since returning from the Institute, in the past 8 or 9 years, why is it that I refuse to accept the advances of any young man in the imperial capital? Why? Can it be that you don't understand? Delia truly didn't know what her parents were thinking. Ever since I came back from the O'Brien Empire and told you about Linley, What I wanted was your blessings. But, instead you tried to stop me. Delia's eyes were glimmering with tears. I admit, your words are very logical. Back then, if I was to be with Linley, it would indeed lower Emperor Rand's trust in our family. Father. Mother. I love you. I love my family. That's why I didn't want to put you in a difficult position. Although I wanted to go meet Linley a long time ago, for your sake, I've been enduring. I've stayed in the imperial capital, because I cherish my family and cherish you. But you try to convince me to marry this person and that person. What is it? Can it be that Linley is inferior to those nobles? Why are you always like this? In the past 7 or 8 months, Delia had felt extremely depressed. I finally waited for this moment. Linley's erected his own duchy. I today came to you filled with excitement. I hoped I would receive my parents' blessings. But, as Delia spoke, her tears began to come out. You disappoint me. You truly disappoint me. De la Leon and his wife were silent as they faced their daughter. Father. Mother. I love you both very much, and cherish you both very much. Delia took a deep breath. If you still love and cherish me, I hope that on the day of my wedding with Linley, I'll receive your blessings. But if you no longer care about this daughter of yours, then forget it. After finishing her words, Delia turned and left. De la Leon and his wife were both somewhat stunned. Only after their daughter had gone did they come to their senses. Delia. They called out, but Delia was already seated on the back of the Wild Thunderstorm Hawk and had flown away. Delia was mounted on the Wild Thunderstorm Hawk and looking down at the rapidly shrinking imperial city. She had bid her teacher farewell, and then left the imperial capital. The wind blew against Delia's golden hair, and also blew her tears dry. Right now, Delia's aching heart only longed to see Linley. Only in Linley's embrace would she find comfort. The Wild Thunderstorm Hawk let out a few hawk cries as well, as though comforting Delia. Slowly, the Wild Thunderstorm Hawk and Delia disappeared into the northern horizon. Black Dirt City. At the base of Mt. Black Raven. Linley is currently training at Mt. Black Raven. Zisler pointed towards a mountain while laughing. Seeing the beautiful scenery of Mt. Black Raven, Delia managed to clamp down on her excitement. Mr. Zisler, is Linley always there? Zisler laughed. Almost his entire time is spent there training. Bibi is there as well. As they spoke, they headed up the mountain. Following that creek, Zisler led Delia to the side of a lake. Delia instantly saw Linley. Right now Linley was dressed in a long, sky blue robe. His long hair was unbound, and he was wielding a violet longsword on the surface of the lake, testing out his sword attacks. Wherever the violet sword passed, space itself seemed to ripple, making Linley seem indistinct and hazy. Clearly, Linley was currently immersed in training. Ah! Delia. You came. Boss. Bibi, who had been playing around in the water, immediately saw Delia, and he immediately let out an excited cry. Linley's movements came to a halt, and he turned around. Seeing Delia, Linley seemed to have suffered a blow to his spirit. His entire body froze, but then, he flew over at high speed. As for Delia, a smile had made its way onto her face, and her eyes had instantly turned moist. Book 10, Baruch, Chapter 18, Title Hidden. Linley landed on the side of the lake. Filled with excitement, he stared at Delia, whose eyes were filled with unshed tears. He had the sudden urge to immediately take Delia into his arms. But although he had this urge, he still just stood there in front of Delia, his mouth open, but not knowing what to say. He had 10 million words in his heart, but he couldn't get a single word out. Linley, you haven't changed. Delia laughed. She was the one to reach out to him, with her left hand. Seeing that white, dainty hand, Linley was stunned for a moment. Delia glanced at him out of the corner of her eyes. Hey, Dumbo, are you going to make me use the soaring technique, just so that I can get to the center of the lake? There was a distance of several dozen meters from here to the center of the lake. If Delia didn't use the soaring technique, she wouldn't be able to get there. Seeing the way Delia was looking at him, and her ivory white arm, Linley immediately reached out with his own right hand and took hers in his own. So, Linley. I'll be leaving now. Zisler finally spoke. Linley and Delia's faces both suddenly flushed pink. Linley turned to glance at Zisler, speechless. Zisler winked towards Linley, then turned and ran away at high speed. That's just how Zisler is. Holding hands with Delia, Linley tapped his foot, summoning a wind which swirled around both of them. Gently, Linley and Delia floated to the center of the lake. They stepped onto the edges of the stone platform, then sat down next to each other. The two continued to hold hands. Feeling the soft warmth of Delia's hand in his own, Linley felt as though he was currently standing in the clouds. Delia's face was slowly turning pink as well. The atmosphere between the two instantly grew more intimate. Suddenly, Linley saw that in the water, not too far away, Bibi had popped his little head out and was using his sneaky little eyes to peek at Linley and Delia. Oh, boss. You guys keep doing what you were doing. Bibi's gonna just go somewhere else to play for a bit. You guys keep on at it? Bibi, knowing that he had been discovered, immediately sank down into the water. However, Linley and Delia didn't notice that far away, on top of a tree near the peak of Mt. Black Raven, a wild thunderstorm hawk was stealthily peeping at them. Hee hee. Delia immediately began to giggle. Linley, Bibi really is adorable. Linley nodded and laughed as well. That's just how Bibi is. Oh, right. Delia, why is it that you waited so long to come here after you left the O'Brien Empire? Did something happen? Linley still remembered how, when Delia had left, she said she would soon come find him. Delia nodded, but she fell silent. The events which had occurred in the imperial capital had truly hurt Delia. She was very disappointed in her parents. Linley's words instantly made Delia feel downcast. What happened? Talk to me. Linley squeezed Delia's hand. You really want to know? Delia stared at Linley, her face close to his. Linley nodded. If you listen to the story, then you'll have to marry me. Delia suddenly said. What? This sneak attack truly caught Linley off guard. Delia truly was the only woman Linley was currently interested in, but for him to immediately marry her, Linley, in his heart, was still rather nervous. His first relationship's failure had caused Linley to be rather defensive in these matters. He still didn't dare to totally invest himself in any relationship with a woman. He was afraid he would be utterly heartbroken once again. I'm just joking with you. Delia began to laugh, then let out a flirtatious sniff. Sheesh, Linley. Can't you just pretend or just tease me for a moment? Delia's words made Linley feel less awkward. Delia took a deep breath. I can tell you the story now, if you still want to hear it. Linley immediately nodded. Delia settled her thoughts. Holding Linley's hand, staring at the peaceful lake waters, she slowly said, Linley. When I received my clan's letter saying that I had to go back, I found, upon my return, my grandmother was perfectly fine. There was nothing wrong with her at all. Linley frowned. When Delia had written him a letter saying that her grandmother was in excellent shape, Linley had already sensed that there was something that lay hidden. Afterwards, I found out that my parents found out from teacher that the reason I stayed behind in the O'Brien Empire was to be together with you. Thus, my parents used this scheme to get me to come back and to part from you. Delia laughed bitterly as she looked at Linley. This scheme was a very clumsy one, but I still fell for it. Linley was puzzled. Your parents. It was for the clan. Delia sighed. Before you had started your own side in the anarchic lands, virtually everyone in the 6 major forces believed you were a member of the O'Brien Empire. The O'Brien Empire and the Yulan Empire have always viewed each other as principal rivals. Linley understood. The most powerful forces in the Yulan continent were these 2 empires. In my parents' opinion, if I were to marry you, then that would be tantamount to colluding and allying with an important saint of the enemy. The emperor of the Yulan Empire would have less trust in our clan. Thus, my father and mother didn't want me to be with you. Delia glanced at Linley. Naturally though, this was just my parents' opinion. They didn't know that we've never discussed marriage. Linley could only rub his nose. Delia said falteringly, the imperial capital is filled with people pursuing me, and my parents kept on trying to persuade me to marry someone else. I wasn't willing. I really hate that. Linley, I really wanted to leave right away and come looking for you, but I didn't want to break the relationship between me and my parents. I really love my parents. I understand, Linley said consolingly. Of course he understood how Delia was feeling. This was because he, too, was a man who cherished his relatives and his parents. I really wanted to come find you, but I didn't want to lose my parents either. Delia chewed on her lips, lowering her voice. Linley could clearly sense that Delia was squeezing his hands more tightly now. Linley rested Delia's hand on his leg. Delia glanced at Linley, a hint of a smile appearing on her face. I was waiting for you to found your duchy. But my parents said that I should marry the emperor of the Yulan Empire and become the empress. HRM. Linley felt a hint of anger in his heart. Delia's parents really were going too far. I wasn't willing. That time, I got angry with my parents. Delia shook her head helplessly. I've always been a filial, obedient child in front of my parents. But that time, I really lost my temper. I told my father clearly that I would rather die than marry those people. Linley felt a grateful feeling in his heart. For a woman to be willing to do this was truly moving. I was waiting, and finally, the letter I waited for arrived. You had founded the Baruch Duchy. Delia looked at Linley. At the time, I was extremely excited. My parents would no longer block us from being together. Linley felt extremely happy as well. As Linley saw it, Delia should have come happily after having a good talk with her parents. But when I told this news to my parents, they once again advised me to marry that emperor. A bitter look was on Delia's face. How can they be like that? Linley's face changed. For them to act like this, Linley could totally understand how Delia must have felt. Right, how can they be like that? Delia's eyes had a sad look in them. I had went to them happily, but I didn't expect that this would be the result. Actually, I should have predicted it. My father is the leader of our clan. Of course he has to think about things from the clan's standpoint. In his eyes, the emperor is very talented and has a high status. Marrying him would also be of benefit to the clan. Marrying His Imperial Majesty truly would have been absolutely perfect. However, he had never considered things from my standpoint. Delia took a deep breath. So, I didn't spend any more time on vain hopes. Delia looked at Linley. I just came. I didn't bother with discussing it with my parents. I left the imperial capital and came to find you. Seeing the look in Delia's eyes, Linley, in his heart, had a powerful surge of emotion. He felt moved, saddened, and fulfilled. Delia, Linley wanted to say something, but the words stuck in his throat and wouldn't come out. The girl in front of him. For his sake, she had waited 10 years by herself. For his sake, she could ignore the allure of becoming the empress. For him, she even left her beloved parents and journeyed all alone to this place to find him. Linley suddenly felt a strong sense of humiliation. He suddenly felt that he really despised himself, really hated himself. She's a girl. She sacrificed so much for you, but from start to finish, you've never even given her as much as a promise. Linley was berating himself mentally. What am I waiting for? What do I have to hesitate about? He looked into Delia's eyes. Delia had always made her feelings very clear, and had always been waiting for him, but he had always been hesitating. But today, Linley knew that he could no longer hesitate. He had kept on hesitating for so long. What he had gained was already extremely precious. She gave up everything and waited 10 years. And she is still waiting, without any promises from me. Linley saw the tears in the corner of Delia's eyes. His heart twitched hard, and he howled at himself, do you want to have Delia wait forever? Until the day her heart dies and she leaves by herself. Linley felt a stabbing pain in his heart. Crunch. That layer of ice surrounding Linley's heart finally shattered and melted away. Linley didn't want to wait any longer. He didn't want to make himself wait. And he didn't want to make Delia wait either. Linley, what's wrong? Seeing the look on Linley's face, she couldn't help but feel concerned. Linley suddenly stretched out his hand and held Delia by her shoulders. Delia could feel her heart begin to thump. Linley stared at Delia, took a deep breath, then said seriously, Delia, marry me. Delia's eyes turned as round as the moon as she stared at Linley in shock. Upon these words coming out, in Linley's consciousness, a bolt of lightning flashed past his mind, illuminating every single scene he had shared with Delia. From the very first time they had met at the Ernst Institute and he had seen that adorable girl. Their time spent together as children. That farewell kiss that night at Wushan Township. One scene after another. He felt a warm feeling in his heart. With a wife like this, what more did he need? Linley. Delia cleared her throat, staring at Linley with wide eyes. What did you just say? Can you say it again? Please. Delia's voice was quavering. Linley stared at Delia. One word at a time, he said to her, Delia. Marry me. Marry me, Linley. Be with me forever, and let us never be separated. All right. Linley's voice was trembling as well. Right now, Linley felt very nervous. Right. Nervous. Delia looked into Linley's eyes. Suddenly, her tears came rolling out. How long had it been? How long had she waited for this day? Even when they were children and their affection was rather indistinct, she had hoped for this day to come one day. Hoped that Linley would become her knight in shining armor. One day after another, she had waited. That year, she had only been a little girl in her teens. But now, she was already a 28-year-old lady. Over 10 years had passed. Whether it was when Linley and Alice had been together, or when Linley had gone missing for 10 years. Or when her parents had stopped them from being together, she hadn't given up. The only thing she was afraid of was Linley abandoning her. She had always been waiting. She hadn't even dared to force Linley to give her any promises. Are you willing? Seeing Delia's entire face covered with tears, Linley felt deeply touched and moved. Delia suddenly threw herself into Linley's embrace, wrapping her arms around him tightly and saying repeatedly into Linley's ear, I'm willing, I'm willing, I'm willing. Linley could feel the warmth from Delia's body. In his heart, he felt more content than he ever had in the past. The name of this chapter was, Delia, Marry Me. Book 10, Baruch, Chapter 19, Kingdom. Linley clearly could sense how, when he held Alice in his arms when they were young, he had felt happy. But now, when he held Delia in his arms, Linley felt, in the deepest part of his heart, a sort of contentment, a spiritual fulfillment. This was true happiness. The ice covering Linley's heart had totally melted. Delia's face was covered with smiles. She had never been so happy before. Linley. I'm so happy. Delia gently whispered into Linley's arms. Me too. Linley gently stroked Delia's fragrant hair and touched her sleek shoulders. Delia obediently rested herself against Linley's chest. She murmured, Linley, I feel as though I'm in a dream, tell me, is this real? That tough woman who could make even an emperor feel nervous was now as obedient as a child. It's real, it's real. Linley could feel the warmth from Delia's body, and a warm, protective feeling arose in his heart. Delia suddenly raised her head and looked at Linley haltingly. Linley, if one day, Alice comes to find you, what would you do? Delia was truly afraid that Linley would be taken away by someone else. Alice. Linley's hand paused, but then he continued to stroke Delia's hair. He said comfortingly, the affection between the two of us ended long ago. I feel neither love nor hatred to her. After all, she can choose who she likes. Linley stroked Delia's face and chuckled, Delia, don't overthink things. I'll never leave you. If I abandon you, then I would truly be an utter fool. Delia, am I an utter fool? Linley looked at Delia. Delia laughed very happily. You are a genius. You are the greatest genius in the Yulan continent. Delia harumphed coldly. Seeing Delia's full, bewitching lips, Linley suddenly had an urge. Without hesitating at all, Linley lowered his head and planted a kiss on Delia's lips. Delia seemed to have been struck by lightning, and her body quivered. But then, she sank into the kiss. This was the second kiss Linley and Delia had shared. The first was that night at Wushan Township. After that, they were a long time apart. Delia didn't say anything, just staying in Linley's embrace. A hint of shyness was still on her face. To Linley, Delia was so utterly mesmerizing right now. Ah, hell, I can't watch anymore, I can't watch anymore, I can't watch anymore. Suddenly, Bibi burst out from underneath the lake water. Linley and Delia both were startled. Bibi, in mid-air, laughed openly and honestly. Sorry, boss. Sorry, boss wife. You two can continue. Boss wife. Linley and Delia couldn't help but begin to laugh. So you were peeking the entire time, Bibi. Tell me, how should I punish you? Linley guessed by now that Bibi was peeking the entire time, and actually, Bibi had utilized the shadow shape technique and been hiding within the shadows of the lake. Linley hadn't been searching for Bibi with his spiritual energy, so naturally he hadn't noticed. Punish me? Bibi pondered for a moment. Oh. Punish me with a lady mouse, one as powerful as me. I'm very lonely right now. Bibi put on a very pitiable look. Linley and Delia couldn't help but both begin to laugh. Unfortunately, I am an extremely, unnaturally gifted mouse that might appear once in 1,000 years. Bibi sighed, then tittered. Boss wife, when are you getting married? I'm getting impatient for you. Get married. Linley looked at Delia. It was indeed time to discuss this issue. The governor's manor. Black Dirt City. When Barker and the others saw Linley and Delia holding hands and walk in together in such an intimate manner, all of them were stunned. Zisler was the first to recover and intentionally said in a loud voice, Lord Linley, what's going on between you and Miss Delia? Because of Linley's status, when they were in front of other people, Zisler addressed Linley as Lord Linley. Delia and I are getting married. Linley smiled. This news had the effect of a forbidden-level magical spell, instantly causing everyone present to explode with sound. Wow! Getting married! Gates was the first to shout. Whoa-ah! Miss Delia, you and Lord Linley are getting married? Wonderful! Rebecca jumped up in excitement as well. The entire hall instantly became a pandemonium of excitement. There was only a single person whose smile was rather forced. Jen. In recent days, Jen had immersed herself in managing the affairs of the duchy. She hadn't expected to suddenly receive this sort of news. But of course, Jen had expected that this day would come, long ago. There was nothing which Linley kept from Delia, and she knew of the history between Jen and Linley. Smiling, Delia walked over to Jen, then took Jen's hands in her own in an extremely warm manner. "Jen, when Linley and I are getting married, you come be my bridesmaid, all right?" Looking at the smile on Delia's face, Jen nodded. Delia immediately pulled Jen into a friendly manner off to one side and began chatting with her. Linley walked towards Barker, Zisler, and the others. "Delia and I have already come to a decision. We will directly host a wedding ceremony. The day of the wedding will be 3 months later, on July 2 nd. Linley laughed as he looked at Barker. "Barker, I think, in the next 3 months, it would be good if we can take over the nearby duchies and found a kingdom before 3 months are up. Can you do this?" Linley wanted his wedding with Delia to be an exciting affair. But 3 months, in Linley's opinion, seemed to be rather short. 3 months? No need. Barker was extremely confident. 1 month is enough. A month? Linley was puzzled. It would be hard to just organize and drill the troops in a month, and we'd have to also reorganize the conquered duchies. That's all rather troublesome. How can you take them over in a month? Gates laughed loudly. "Lord, there's something you aren't aware of. Please take a look." Gates walked to a military map that had been hung up on a wall. "Lord, take a good look at the current disposition of forces in the anarchic lands. These 20+ duchies all belong to the Radiant Church, while these all belong to the Cult of Shadows. But these are unaligned." Linley immediately understood. This power distribution was quite strange. The Radiant Church and the Cult of Shadows both controlled duchies in the center of the anarchic lands as well as in the south. They occupied more than half of the anarchic lands. Only the northernmost areas next to the Forest of Darkness were unaligned. The anarchic lands were rectangular in shape. If you were to divide it into 4 equal quarters, then the northernmost portion was the portion closest to the Forest of Darkness. Neither the Radiant Church nor the Cult of Shadows wanted that area. "Lord, our Baruch Duchy is located near the Forest of Darkness," Barker explained. "Oh. In the past, I never paid attention to this." Linley stared carefully at the military map. "The Cult of Shadows and the Radiant Church have taken over half of the anarchic lands. But why is it that they don't want the northernmost area which is located close to the Forest of Darkness? The Baruch Duchy, after all, had been set up close to the north." "Lord Linley." Zisler walked over, laughing. "This is why we say that we can easily unify the area in a short time." "Oh." Linley looked at Zisler with a questioningly glance. "Is it because it belongs to neither side, which makes it easier to unify?" Zisler explained, laughing, "That's not what I mean. I mean, aside from our own duchy, most likely more than half of those 7 other duchies near the Forest of Darkness would be willing to directly surrender to us. More than half would surrender to us." Linley didn't understand. "Can it be that they feel pressured by our power?" Zisler explained, "Lord Linley. Have you forgotten that every few decades or every decade, there will be a massive wave of magical beasts from the Forest of Darkness? Each wave of magical beasts first attacks the border duchies closest to the Forest of Darkness, and thus the battles rage on the most in these duchies as well." Linley instantly understood. "Are you saying that these duchies?" "Right. These duchies are the poorest duchies in the anarchic lands and the most pitiable ones as well." Zisler sighed. "The Radiant Church and the Cult of Shadows are both uninterested in unifying it, because, resisting the magical monster waves costs too much gold, far more than these duchies can generate." Linley now fully understood. This was a barren wasteland. Unifying this region meant that one would have to struggle against the countless magical beasts in the Forest of Darkness. Linley could totally imagine how brutal those battles would be, each time, most likely over 1 million people would die, or even more. Linley, of the 7 duchies here, aside from a few who don't want to surrender, the rest all deeply desire to have a strong base of support. And you, Lord, are a saint and would make an excellent, powerful support. Zisler laughed. Not just them. Even the commoners wish for you to lead and unify them. That way, they would be safer. Barker laughed. And Lord, even now, there have been at least 3 duchies who sent people to come and negotiate the terms of their surrender. Only, because their territories are not immediately adjacent to ours, we need to first take over the duchies east of us. Linley nodded. Since that's the case, then do it as quickly as possible. Gates slapped his chest and boasted, Lord, a month from now, a full quarter of the anarchic lands will be under your control. Of course, this is the poorest quarter in the anarchic lands, but at the same time, it is the most militant and ferocious quarter. Linley nodded. Zisler, make the arrangements. Have my wedding invitation letters be sent to these people. I'll send a list of names to you in a while. Yes, Lord Linley. Zisler acknowledged, and then laughed. Then are you planning to openly announce the news of your marriage? Linley looked towards the side at Delia and Jen, who were happily chatting. Linley had a desire, no matter what, he would definitely have to make Delia happy. Publicize it. I want the day of the founding of the Baruch kingdom to be the day of my grand wedding. Linley said heroically. Clearly, this meant that a month from now, they would unify their quarter of the anarchic lands under their banner, while 3 months from now, the Baruch kingdom would be founded and the wedding would also be held. From a territorial standpoint, controlling a quarter of the anarchic lands meant controlling quite a large swathe of territory. The size of it was significantly larger than the former kingdom of Fenley. In population alone, there was roughly 100 million citizens. A lonely island in the oceans. The most core area of the Radiant Church, the Sacred Isle. It received news from the anarchic lands. On the 9th floor of the Radiant Temple. Haydns was reading this letter. When Linley and his magical beast combined forces, they were able to force Asano to retreat. Staring at this letter, Haydns felt as though he had been stricken heavily. Asano's power was unquestionable. Especially his doppelganger technique, which let him divide into 4. It was incredibly terrifying. Even Haidsun probably would have been badly injured and then killed by Asano. After all, it was simply too hard to block the doppelganger technique. Asano speaks the truth. Haydn's heart tightened. If this continues, then... The Radiant Church didn't fear Linley. But Linley wasn't alone. He had that mysterious, godlike magical beast, Bibi. He also had 5 undying warriors, and his little brother. In the future, when Linley reaches the saint level in his human form and the 5 brothers also reach the saint level in human form, and when Linley's little brother reaches the saint level in his human form, that means they have 7 peak stage supreme warriors. If you add in that magical beast rodent, which is no inferior to supreme warriors, that means they will have 8. Every single peak stage supreme warrior was capable of being described as the most powerful of saints. 7 supreme warriors and the magical beast Bibi, if they were to attack the Sacred Isle in Massey, Haydns could totally imagine the scene. The Radiant Church would be in a battle for its very life, and in the end, it would probably perish. Unacceptable. Linley must die. Haydns turned to look at Cardinal Guillermo. He ordered, Guillermo, go invite Commander Lehman, quickly. Commander Lehman. Guillermo was shocked. In the Radiant Church, the most powerful person was the Holy Emperor, Haydns. The most frighteningly mysterious person was Asano. The most admirable and most respected person was the spiritual leader of the ascetics, Lord Fallen Leaf. But the person who caused the most dread, was the legendary commander of the Zealots, Lehman. The Zealots all possessed a unique power. Why are you hesitating? Quick, go. Haydns rebuked. Haydns didn't dare to hesitate any longer. He had to send a man whose power was no lower than that of Asano's, Commander Lehman. If the two joined forces, then it would be surprising, indeed, if they were still unable to overcome Linley. Book 10, Baruch, Chapter 20, A Procession of Arrivals. One of the prefectural cities in the northern part of the anarchic lands. Ankh, Gates, and Boone each wielded their massive long-handled Gria taxes, standing atop the city walls like war gods. Corpses littered the ground around them, and fresh blood stained the walls and the ground below the walls. The nearby soldiers were all terrified. They didn't dare to fight back anymore. All of them put down their weapons. Of the 7 duchies, 5 duchies have voluntarily surrendered. The previous duchy was easily taken over. You are the last one. Gates grabbed the leader of the town guards, his furious, ox-like eyes staring into the terrified, quivering leader. Mother of Asterisker, why fight back when you don't have the power to? Isn't that the same as just ordering your soldiers to commit suicide? It was indeed tantamount to suicide. The two sides were on totally different levels of power. Gates and the other two had killed a huge number of the enemies by themselves. Hoisted high into the air, the captain of the guard said in terror, "Lord, this has nothing to do with me. It was the orders of the Grand Duke." Fifth brother. Ankh laughed. "Enough. Let's go down. Big brother and the others are all down below. Most likely, they are already drinking celebratory wine. After having taken over this prefectural city, when we add it to the 5 which surrendered and the one we just took over, that means we have finished our mission." Gates and Boone both began to laugh loudly. In 20 short days, all of the 8 duchies which bordered the Forest of Darkness had been reformed into a kingdom, the Baruch Kingdom. The Baruch Kingdom had over 100 million people under its rule and took up a quarter of the anarchic lands. Although the people here were poor, they were very violent and ferocious. In the richer areas of the anarchic lands, the Radiant Church and the Cult of Shadows still remained in control. From this point onwards, the anarchic lands had been divided into 3 major spheres of influence. The number 1 genius in the history of the Yulan continent, Linley, was going to hold a wedding with Miss Delia of the Liang clan of the Yulan Empire. The day of this wedding was going to be the same day the Baruch Kingdom was formally established. Time, Yulan calendar, year 10,010, July 21st. Place, the future capital of the Baruch Kingdom, Baruch City, currently known as Black Dirt City, being rebuilt. This news quickly swept throughout the anarchic lands like a tornado, and at the same time, it was made public to the various powers in the entire Yulan continent. One letter of invitation after another was sent to the various locations of the Yulan continent. Countless eyes were focused now on the anarchic lands. The imperial capital of the Yulan Empire. The Liang clan's main hall. In terms of status, the person with the highest status in the Liang clan wasn't the clan leader, Dilla Leon. It was Dixie Leon. First of all, Dixie would be the next clan leader. But more importantly, he was the personal disciple of the supporting pillar of the Yulan Empire, the High Priest. The High Priest was one of the most powerful entities in human society. In the hearts of the countless masses, perhaps only the war god could compare to the High Priest. An astonishingly powerful expert who had wielded the power of the deities before the Yulan calendar had even started. The vast majority of the people the High Priest accepted as a personal disciple ended up becoming Grand Mega Saints. The personal disciple of the High Priest, and a future Grand Mega Saint. And a dual-element Grand Mega Saint at that. Dilla Leon was currently frowning as he handed the letter of invitation to his son, Dixie. His back was ramrod straight, and his golden hair was long and unbound. He had an aura of icily keeping all comers at arm's length. This was just the way he was. Dixie. After reading the letter, however, a rare smile actually touched his lips. Linley didn't disappoint my little sister after all. Dixie, what do you think we should do? De Leon asked. Dixie glanced at his father, then frowned. What do you mean, what we should do? My little sister has finally gotten the happiness she has been pursuing for over 10 years. Of course we need to celebrate. De Leon and his wife hesitated just a moment. Father, mother, I know what you two were scheming. Dixie said calmly. You must allow your vision to expand beyond the limits of mortal, worldly power. The true controllers of the destiny of the Yulan continent, are still the likes of the war god, the high priest, and the various saints. Dixie had to admit that his parents were rather short-sighted. Dixie, my beloved son, no matter how powerful Linley is, how can he possibly influence the Yulan Empire? Dilla sighed. After all, the root of our clan lies in the Yulan Empire. Dixie glanced at his father. Father, I must tell you something. You underestimate Linley. Oh? How so? De Leon was a bit puzzled. Dixie said seriously, actually, this time before I returned, Master gave me an order. Master? Ah. The high priest. De Leon's eyes instantly turned round. Good heavens! Ordinary people like them might never meet the high priest in their entire lives. But now, the high priest had personally issued an order to their son. They suddenly felt honored and glorious beyond compare. The high priest instructed me and 2 of my fellow apprentices to go to the anarchic lands and be his representatives in congratulating Linley. Dixie said seriously. Dixie didn't understand it either. Why did someone at the level of the high priest need to express such friendliness towards Linley? Especially since Dixie knew, the war god and the high priest were on opposing sides. Linley was on good terms with the war god. Logically speaking, the high priest should be on bad terms with Linley. But it seemed the high priest actually wished to express friendliness towards Linley. The waters of the Yulan continent are deep indeed. Dixie sighed to himself. The imperial capital of the Yulan Empire. The Walsh clan. Milord, this is the letter of invitation from Master Linley, from the anarchic lands. The housekeeper respectfully handed a letter to George. By this point in time, George had already been appointed the successor to the clan leader possession by the Walsh clan. George accepted the letter. Haha, third bro. I didn't expect that you'd end up with Delia after all. George began laughing loudly as he read the letter. The world plays jokes on us all. George still remembered how, when they had first entered the Ernst Institute, Delia would often go looking for Linley. But when George had seen Alice and Linley start to date, he had thought that Linley and Delia would never work out. Unexpectedly, in the end, after 10 years, the circle was completed. Linley and Delia had gotten together. The leaders of all the organizations in the Yulan continent which either had some relationship with Linley or were extremely powerful all received letters of invitation. After all, this wasn't just a wedding ceremony. It was also the founding of a kingdom. Naturally, they had to invite the leaders of the various organizations. Ever since Linley had entered the city of Black Dirt had begun to engage in a construction boom. By now, Black Dirt City, despite being territorially small, was extremely exquisite and lavish. Even the region outside Black Dirt City was beginning to engage in large-scale construction. Linley had invited many guests. Amongst the first group to arrive in Black Dirt City was Wharton, Nina, Uncle Hillman, and Grandpa Hyrie. In the governor's mansion. A scene of excitement and joy. Big brother, Nina, and I have decided that from today onwards, we won't be leaving. We'll be staying here at your place. Wharton laughed loudly. Big brother, you've worked so hard to establish your own realm. How can we live a life of luxury and comfort in the imperial capital? We're embarrassed to do so. Linley was secretly overjoyed. He didn't actually have much free time to manage the kingdom. Most of his time was spent training. Wharton, I've been waiting a long time to hear you say these words. Linley laughed. Linley suddenly stared towards Nina's stomach, then looked at Warden with suspicion. Warden, it seems Nina's stomach has gotten a bit bigger. Can it be that? Nina and Warden exchanged glances, then began to laugh. The nearby Uncle Hillman laughed as well. Linley, you truly are a saint-level expert. Your perception is truly amazing. Right. Princess Nina is already pregnant. Linley, you've fallen a bit behind in this area. In the future, you and Delia need to work hard. Linley and Delia didn't know whether to laugh or to cry. Sister Nina, have you decided on a name for the child yet? Delia asked. Nina nodded. I have. Whether it is a boy or a girl, we are going to name it Sina 11ne. Sina. Linley looked at his little brother Warden. Does this have some sort of special meaning? Warden immediately began to laugh loudly, exchanging a knowing glance with Nina. Then he said secretively towards Linley, this is a secret between me and Nina. I can't tell you. Linley clapped his hands to his head. What? You are keeping secrets from me, your big brother. Everyone in the hall laughed joyously. Halfway through the event, Linley secretly pulled Warden into a nearby flower garden, and the two siblings took a private walk. Big brother, what is it? Warden waited for them to enter the garden before asking. Linley looked at his little brother. Probingly, he asked, Warden, I've always been hoping that you would decide to come here and live with me. Now that you are here, I truly am happy. But, is Nina truly happy about it as well, in her heart? Don't make her do something she doesn't want to do. Warden nodded. Big brother, Nina had a long talk with me. She decided to come with me, and in the future, when she has some free time, she'll occasionally go back for a visit. That's the only way, I suppose. Linley laughed as he looked at Warden. Warden, after the Baruch kingdom is formally founded and Delia and I are married, I intend to directly coronate you as the king of the Baruch kingdom. Linley was telling his little brother in advance, so as to mentally prepare him. Warden was stunned. King. I've already named the kingdom Baruch. Naturally, it must be ruled over by the heirs of the Baruch clan. Linley had made this decision a long time ago. Warden didn't decline. Fine, then. I'm currently only a warrior of the 8th rank. It should be 20 or 30 years before my human form reaches the saint level. Right now, there's not much of a point to training to gain a higher level of understanding. When I reach that level, I'll pass the throne down to my son, or perhaps your son, big brother. Linley understood what Warden was thinking. Warden would need to spend time training after all. But training in understanding the laws was something which required someone to be in harmony with and able to clearly sense nature, and to sense the various movements of the elemental essences. That required an extremely high level of elemental essence affinity. Generally speaking, magi had high levels of elemental essence affinity, but the same was not true for warriors. Their elemental essence affinity was not as high. The same was true for Warden. Right now, he virtually couldn't sense nature at all. Thus, it would be extremely hard for him to gain any insights on the laws. But upon reaching the saint level, things would change. Upon reaching the saint level, one would have a much greater level of ability to sense the surrounding elements. Saints could clearly sense the elements and quickly increase their level of insight. This was the same reason why it was so hard for one to advance from being a warrior of the 9th rank to the saint level. Only a small number of warriors of the 9th rank had a high elemental essence affinity. However, supreme warriors didn't need any particular level of insight. So long as they could train their battle chi to a certain level, they would naturally reach the saint level. After spending 3 days in the city of Black Dirt, Linley and Delia left the city and returned to Mt. Black Raven and began a life of quiet training. As for Bibi, whenever he got bored, Bibi and Haru would go around the forest of darkness, slaughtering magical beasts. The light blue skies had a dark streak of light and a white streak of light flashing through it at high speed, heading in the direction of Black Dirt City in the anarchic lands. The black streak of light was Asano. Today, Asano was dressed in a long black robe with golden threads interwoven into it. His devilish purple hair flowed freely in the wind. By his side was a powerful middle-aged man dressed in a loose, long white robe. This powerful middle-aged man's body was an astonishing 2.5 meters tall. A height of 2.5 meters was virtually unheard of in humans. His long white robes fluttered in the wind, and his short green hair gleamed like steel needles. His face seemed to have been carved from stone, but there was an extremely faint seal located in the center of his forehead. The seal of a white flame. His body emanated an oppressive, heart-shaking aura. This person was the commander of the Zealots, Lord Lehman. The two flew together, side by side. As Asano constantly explained about Linley and Bibi's combat tactics and abilities to Lehman. That's everything. Lehman, by now, you should have a good sense of the situation, right? How confident are you? Lehman glanced at him, his eyes flashing with light. His deep voice echoed forth from his massive chest, Asano, that man and his magical beast are inferior to you in strength, but you were still defeated by them. However, that isn't surprising, your single target attacks are not that strong. What you mainly rely on is the bizarreness of your doppelganger technique. As for me, I can kill both of them by myself. Asano understood, as well, that his single target attacks were relatively weak. But for Lehman, it was the opposite, his forte was in single target attacks. Black Dirt City is up ahead. Asano pointed at the city below them. Next to it is MT Black Raven. According to my intelligence, Linley spends virtually all of his time there at MT Black Raven. We should head directly to MT Black Raven. Lehman focused his gaze on the below MT Black Raven. Instantly, the two charged down towards MT Black Raven. Book 10, Baruch, Chapter 21, The Laws of Light. Asano and Lehman flew at high speed towards MT Black Raven, while at the same time, they spread their spiritual energy to encapsulate the entirety of MT Black Raven. Linley is at MT Black Raven. He's the one wearing blue. Asano immediately said. Got it? Lehman's eyes were flashing with light, and at the same time, the energy in his body began to be roused. In Lehman's hands, a 3-meter-long long staff suddenly appeared. Although it was a long staff to him, to an ordinary person, a better word would be tree branch. However, given Lehman's size and 2.5-meter height, his massive hands could fully wrap around the thick long staff, which had various mysterious runes carved onto it. That rat-type magical beast isn't there, but there are two other saints present, along with an ordinary woman. Could that be Delia? Asano was rather puzzled. But for now, there was no need for them to overthink things. Boom! It was as though a bolt of lightning had blasted down. Lehman, staff in hand, charged down at high speed. He ignored all others, focusing on his target, Linley. Linley and Delia were currently entertaining guests. Desri, and his wife? Desri and his wife had just gone to the Frost Goddess Shrine, and on the way back, they came to visit Linley and to offer him their congratulations. Just as the two couples were chatting happily, a terrifying surge of power descended from the heavens. The target, Linley. Out of the way. Linley's face changed, and he immediately pushed Delia aside. A surge of wind suddenly surrounded Delia, while Linley himself immediately transformed into the dragon blood warrior form. His sky-blue robe was directly shredded into pieces, and the adamantine heavy sword appeared in his hands. A silver long staff that carried boundless force with it had already appeared in front of his eyes. Whoosh! The air itself rippled and folded, as though space itself was being ripped apart. The silver long staff smashed directly towards Linley, who sensed that he was facing a greater danger than he ever had before. He could sense that he had been totally locked down, with the surrounding space applying pressure on him. Linley. Delia, who had been pushed to the side, stared at him with eyes filled with terror. But just at this moment, a milk-white, gentle light appeared in front of Linley, appearing like a white silk cloth. That silver long staff, which seemed to contain enough force to obliterate the entire empty black raven, smashed against the milk-white light, and the white silk cloth formed from energy. The white silk cloth only caved in slightly, and the long staff could no longer push any further. But the long staff-wielding Lehman felt the rebound force, which sent him flying backwards before landing 100 meters away. Asano also landed by Lehman's side, staring at Desri in astonishment. He knew that it was this person who had blocked Lehman. "Who are you?" Asano spoke. "Asano, it's you." Linley's face became grim. Delia ran over to Linley's side. She was extremely worried. Right now, Linley and Desri were in the center of the lake, while Lehman and Asano were on the shore. The two sides stared at each other across the water. The Radiant Church's forces. Desri frowned. Linley was secretly startled. Desri used to belong to the Radiant Church. He wouldn't still feel a degree of nostalgia for them, would he? At the same time, Linley immediately spoke mentally to Bibi. "Bibi, stop messing around in the forest of darkness. Come back, quick. The Radiant Church's forces have come knocking." "Boss, I'll come back at top speed," Bibi immediately replied. Linley carefully looked at Asano and Lehman, especially Lehman, whose 2.5-meter tall frame was terrifying to behold and gave Linley a forbidding feeling. Just then, "The one who attacked me was the big guy. That big guy is definitely not one bit weaker than Asano. Delia, make sure you protect yourself," Linley whispered to Delia by his side him. Delia didn't dare to make a sound. She didn't want to distract Linley. "Who are you?" Asano stared at Desri. "This is the private affair between Linley and the Radiant Church. I hope you won't interfere. It seems that you, too, are a practitioner of the elemental laws of light. Today, if you step aside, it would be considered giving the Radiant Church face. In the future, we will definitely repay it." The proud and arrogant Lehman didn't say a sound. The technique that Desri had used just then had let Lehman know exactly how much of a threat this man was. "My name is Desri." Desri finally spoke. "Desri, it's you." Asano and Lehman's faces both changed dramatically. Desri was a legendary figure within the Radiant Church. Long ago, the legendary Holy Emperor Ernst founded the Holy Union. In that era, Desri was the spiritual leader of the ascetics of the Radiant Church. His position was equivalent to the status of the current Lord Fallen Leaf. Asano and Lehman exchanged glances. They both could sense the terror in each other's heart. They were facing a saint from the era of the legendary Holy Emperor Ernst. From then to now, one could simply imagine how much more powerful the person had grown. "Lord Desri, I hope that you will consider the former affection and relationship between our two parties and not get involved in this matter," Asano said sincerely. "HRMPH. In your dreams." An ice-cold voice rang out from behind. It was the nearby Pencilin. Pencilin gave Linley a no-need-to-worry look. Hearing Pencilin's words, the formerly nervous Linley felt a sense of gratitude. But Linley still turned to look at Desri. After all, the decision-maker here was Desri. "What are you thinking about?" Pencilin said angrily as she saw that Desri was hesitating. As far as Pencilin was concerned, there was nothing to hesitate over. Delia began to grow nervous as well. She looked at Desri with concern. "Lord Desri, can it be that you've forgotten the kindness which Lord Ernst showed you in the past?" Asano hurriedly said. Desri hesitated for a while, but then sighed and said, "I won't allow you to kill Linley. You can leave, now." Desri did indeed feel some degree of affection for the Radiant Church. Especially Ernst. In the past, the two had been as close as real brothers. Lord Desri. Asano said frantically. This Linley killed 6 angels and shows no mercy to our radiant church at all. If he is allowed to develop, especially alongside those 5 undying warriors, the threat he will pose to our church is simply too great. Can it be, Lord Desri, that you are just going to watch as the church is destroyed by him? Desri frowned. I told you to leave. Desri's voice turned heavy. Asano and Lehman glanced at each other. They had already made a decision. Lehman stared at Desri and said loudly, Desri, since you are going to be like this, we don't have any choice either. They now addressed Desri directly by his name. Lehman's body suddenly began to glow with a white fire, and a terrifying surge of power began to emanate from him, turning the grass nearby into nothingness. The silver long staff in his hands flashed like a bolt of lightning. Zealot. Desri chuckled calmly. Asano's body began to emanate with that black fire, and his body transformed into 4 Asanos. Lehman, I'll deal with this Desri. I'll hand Linley to you. Asano felt that although he was weaker than Desri, by using his doppelgangers, he should be able to hold down Desri without too much trouble. Madam Penslin, I entrust Delia to you. Linley whispered. Don't worry. Penslin immediately pulled Delia away. Delia didn't say anything, just giving Linley a meaningful look. Linley felt his heart swell with the desire to do battle, no matter what, for Delia's sake. I can't die. Linley immediately stared coldly at Lehman. So what if your attack is powerful? Can you kill me with one blow from your staff? Linley's body began to be surrounded by that roiling azurish black energy. My pulse guard defense has already reached 152 layers. With my draconic scales protecting me as well, kill me in one blow? In his dreams, Linley felt confident in his heart. His profound truths of the earth was nothing to laugh at. At this time, I have to use my last, fallback technique. Linley's left hand gripped blood violet. At the critical juncture, he would have to utilize the terrifying baleful aura held within blood violet. Boom. A terrifying sonic boom could be heard as Lehman charged forward. At the same time, the 4 Asanos also emitted sonic booms as he charged forward to try and entangle Desri. Because of his sudden acceleration, the nearby wind began to howl, and stones were actually blown loose from Linley's stone house and were knocked far away, while the water of the lake began to rise in waves. How laughable! A clear sound rang out from Desri's mouth. Desri simply stood there in mid-air, while his entire body began to emanate a dazzling white light. Instantly, Desri transformed into the sun, and lines of white light shot towards all 4 of the Asanos as well as Lehman. No matter how fast someone was, they couldn't be faster than light. The 4 Asanos and Lehman were all struck instantly by those beams of white light. All 4 Asanos shuddered, and 3 of them instantly collapsed, while the last one blazed with that black fire, using it to resist the white light. Ah! Lehman let out a furious howl, and the seal of white fire on his forehead instantly lit up. Bang! Lehman actually smashed straight through Desri's protective barrier with his silver longstaff. Desri was extremely shocked. Before he had the chance to let out a second attack, Linley and Lehman exchanged blows. After having broken through Desri's first barrier, Lehman saw a pair of cold, dark golden eyes and a dark blue heavy sword. Lehman was startled. It's Linley. Not hesitating at all, he swung his long staff down and smashed it hard against Linley. Linley didn't hold anything in reserve either, attacking simultaneously with his adamantine heavy sword and his blood violet long sword. Die! Lehman howled with rage, a fierce look on his face. The seal of a white flame on his forehead became even brighter, and the silver long staff in his hand seemed to have created ripples in space as it smashed down against Linley with terrifying force. Linley instantly activated the baleful aura hidden within blood violet. Linley's dark golden eyes suddenly contained a hint of red, and his consciousness immediately became filled with that familiar scene, the boundless sea of blood, with skeletons and corpses of various species littering the place. Corpses of 10-meter-tall giants covered with scales and 2 horns on their forehead. White skeletons that had a hint of strange gold tint. All of the corpses and skeletons had the aura of at least a saint, and some were even more terrifying. Ah! Lehman suddenly let out a wild howl. That terrifying baleful force penetrated his consciousness. That baleful aura that belonged to an incomprehensibly powerful expert caused even the likes of Lehman to quail in fear. Even the white flame seal on his forehead shook, and the long staff in his hands naturally weakened. Bang! The silver long staff and the adamantine heavy sword clashed. Profound truths of the earth, 152 layered waves. Linley's adamantine heavy sword was smashed so hard, it was knocked back towards his own body. When that terrifying force struck his pulse guard defense, the energy of the defense immediately sprang up, but a terrifying power which he had never before experienced still was able to break through the defense. Linley was knocked back flying. Linley! The distant Delia grew frantic. With a somersault, Linley landed on the edges of the lake. He flashed Delia a smile. "Don't worry. I'm fine." As he spoke, Linley forced down the blood that had risen to his throat. Seeing the shattered draconic scales on his chest, Linley couldn't help but be secretly startled. If just then, he hadn't used the blood-violet longsword, he probably would have been deeply injured and collapsed. Lehman was still standing in mid-air, a hint of blood leaking from his mouth. His gaze was clear now. "Bastard!" Lehman let out a furious howl, once more smashing down against Linley with his silver longstaff. "HRMPH!" A cold sneer could be heard, and a translucent ripple that could be seen by the naked eye emanated forth from Desri's body. In the blink of an eye, it struck against Lehman. Lehman's massive body trembled, and then collapsed down from the skies. Splash! He sank directly into the lake. "The two of you, don't force my hand." Desri's face had turned grim. Book 10, Baruch, Chapter 22, The Four-Sided Gathering. Such powerful spiritual energy. He is able to cause injuries from a distance with it. Lehman wasn't able to resist at all. Linley was utterly shocked. No wonder the war god said that Desri and Fane are 2 of the 5 prime saints who were at the doorway to becoming a deity. They only need to take that last step. They are simply too strong. Asano no longer dared to move. His heart, too, was filled with terror. Burst. A human figure charged up through the water. It was Lehman. Lehman, at this point, obediently flew to Asano's side. His face was exceedingly pale, and he stared at Desri with a hint of dread in his eyes. Desri looked at these 2 men with furrowed brows. "You know that in the past, I was the leader of the ascetics. You should also know that I am a grand mega saint." Asano and Lehman exchanged glances. Grand mega saints specialized in powerful spiritual energy, especially the sort of expert like Desri, who had trained for millennia. When using his spiritual energy, he was on a far higher level than his good friend Hayward. In terms of spiritual energy or in understanding the elemental laws of light, Desri was at the absolute limit of power a saint could reach. With one more step, he would become a deity. "Lord Desri." Asano once more addressed Desri as Lord. Asano still remember the information regarding Desri in the scrolls of the Radiant Church. He knew that Desri had been on extremely close terms with the legendary Holy Emperor Ernst. Lord Ernst worked all his life to raise up the Radiant Church. He founded the Holy Union. He let the Radiant Church rise to glory. These 5,000 years, we have never given up and never stopped working hard. Asano's voice was very low. Desri frowned. In his heart, he didn't feel much affection for the Radiant Church. But, he felt a great deal of guilt towards Ernst. Ernst was like an older brother to him. His older brother had indeed labored on behalf of the Radiant Church his entire life, and in the end, he had gone to the divine plane of light. But Linley, not only is he himself a dragon blood warrior, he has a younger brother and 5 undying warriors under his control. He also has that magical beast, Bibi, who is no weaker than him. Asano looked at Desri. In a few decades, that means he will have 7 peak stage supreme warriors and a terrifying magical beast. If they were to attack together, our church would be finished. Lord Desri, our church would be finished. The life's labor of Lord Ernst would be destroyed. Asano's voice caused Desri's heart to tremble. He still remembered the help and affection which Ernst, his big brother, had given him. Linley, Penslin, and Delia were standing together. Penslin sighed softly to Linley. The only person Desri feels guilty towards is Ernst. He must feel very torn right now. The Ernst Institute got its name from Ernst. Linley naturally knew much about Ernst as well. A sigh could be heard from Desri. Desri stared at both sides, then said in a bright voice. How about this? Both sides take a step back. Consider it giving me, Desri, some face. All right. Take a step back. Asano and Lehman stared at Desri in confusion. Linley was mystified as well. Both of you, come to the center of the lake. Desri said. Linley trusted Desri. And so with Delia's hand in his own, he flew to the center of the lake. Asano and Lehman also quite obediently flew to the center of the lake. Linley and Delia stood on one side of the massive central boulder, while Asano and Lehman stood on the other side. Both of them were on guard. What is Desri planning? Linley frowned. Desri smiled calmly. I know very well that there is a deep grudge between the two of you. How about this, in the next 20 years, the Radiant Church is not permitted to kill Linley. 20 years. Asano was unhappy. Lord Desri, 20 years later, Linley will be at the saint level in human form. Even if we wanted to kill him, we wouldn't be able to. Unfair. Unfair. Shut your mouth. Desri had a hint of anger on his face. Asano's heart shook. He suddenly remembered at this moment, it was Desri whose words counted. This requirement is the same as asking the Radiant Church to take a step. As for you, Linley, I also wish for you to take a step back. Desri looked at Linley. Lord Desri, pray tell. Linley said. Desri smiled apologetically. Asano's words are true as well. Linley, you yourself aren't a major threat, but combined with your little brother and those 5 undying warriors, you represent a force of 7 supreme warriors. That is indeed capable of destroying the Radiant Church. Thus, I want you to agree that from today onward, if you want to seek revenge on the Radiant Church, you have to do so by yourself. The others, including your magical beast, cannot. Hearing these words, Asano and Lehman both let out a sigh of relief. What sort of place was the Sacred Isle? That was the headquarters for the entire Radiant Church. They had a huge pile of angel saints, and the likes of Haydn's and Lord Fallen Leaf. And given that the Sacred Isle was also protected by some large-scale magical formations, anything short of a deity would definitely die if they attacked. Do you understand what I intend, now? Desri looked at the two sides. Our side, within the next 20 years, is not to act against Linley. In exchange for Linley only being allowed to seek revenge on his own. Asano laughed calmly. I can agree. If we can't even hold you off by yourself, then there is nothing I can say on behalf of our Radiant Church if we are destroyed. Asano agreed easily as well. The Radiant Church wasn't afraid of Linley. They were afraid of the entire group of people behind Linley. Linley, how about you? Desri looked at Linley. In his heart, Linley was rather unwilling. Exterminate the Radiant Church by myself. Linley still knew his own limits. A church which has existed for 10,000 years, That's no easy task. But to reach the deity level, even Caesar spent 5,000 years. The legendary war god who reached the deity level in a short time period actually was simply fortunate enough to find a divine spark. If it was just based on his own abilities, who knows how long it would have taken. Linley frowned. Linley. Desri spoke again. Asano and Lehman were both looking at him. Linley suddenly turned to look at Delia by his side. Linley's heart trembled. No matter what, I can't let Delia come to harm. Linley made up his mind. He immediately said to Desri, the Radiant Church is not permitted to attack me within the next 20 years, fine, but there's one more clause, they are forever forbidden from harming my family and friends. Fine. Asano hurriedly said. Linley looked at Asano. A hint of cold light in his eyes. He secretly said to himself, by myself? Although I might not dare to attack the Sacred Isle, but if I ever meet you people traveling alone, can't I kill you then? If you want, then just stay inside the Sacred Isle forever. For the sake of his family and friends, Linley chose to accept this compromise. Asano and Lehman both let out secret sighs of relief. After all, Desri was on Linley's side. They didn't have much support here. In the middle of the lake in Mt. Black Raven, Linley's side and the Radiant Church both accepted this treaty. If in the next 20 years, Linley comes to attack us, we will counterattack. If he dies due to our counterattack, we cannot be blamed. Asano hurriedly said. Linley sneered. HRMPH, don't worry. I don't plan to play word games with you. Linley suddenly laughed loudly. If in the future, someone like the war god leads experts to attack the Sacred Isle, I'll also seize the opportunity to go. I cannot be blamed in that situation. That naturally wouldn't be your fault. Asano shook his head. If the war god wanted to destroy the Radiant Church, most likely the Radiant Church would have been finished long ago. After the two agreed to the treaty, Delia suddenly said, then what about the territory in the anarchic lands? Will saints take part in the battles? Saints? Asano frowned. Indeed. The Radiant Church had a large expanse of territory under its control in the anarchic lands, and Linley did as well. If the two came to a fight, once saints got involved in the battle, then perhaps before the 20 years was up, Linley and the Radiant Church would come to blows. How about this? Desri spoke. Mortal, worldly battles, saints are not to be involved. Desri looked towards Penslin. Madam, go find OKCAOK 11 of the Cult of Shadows. Tell him I need to speak with him. We'll wait for you here. Fine. Penslin nodded, then flew away immediately. OKC? Who is he? Linley frowned as he asked. Asano said, OKC is the elder judge of the Cult of Shadows Tribunal. His position is equivalent to mine in the Radiant Church. He is also the general supervisor for the Cult of Shadows in the anarchic lands. Linley nodded. In mortal battles, saints are not to participate. Linley, dare you accept? Asano stared coldly at Linley. Barker and his brothers aren't saints in their human form. They should be able to participate in battle, right? Linley asked. Of course. They are just 5 warriors of the 9th rank. Asano said disdainfully. Linley, in terms of the numbers of experts of the 9th rank, you are far from being able to match our Radiant Church and the Cult of Shadows. Linley smiled confidently, not paying any attention to him. Delia. Linley held Delia's hand. Right now, he was still in dragon form, and his hand was covered with scales, but Delia didn't mind at all. She looked at Linley, and in a soft voice, she said, Linley, thank you. Delia knew that Linley had compromised for her sake in part. Linley didn't say anything. After all these years and having suffered so much, Linley had learned something. Sometimes, a single mistake caused by being unbending could cause someone to suffer a lifetime of regret. The occasional compromise that allows one's loved ones to be safe also allowed one to pursue revenge with even greater ferocity. What? I am unable to eliminate the Radiant Church by myself. Linley secretly said to himself, in history, has there ever been a supreme warrior saint who was also a grand mega saint? When his power reached its utmost peak, Linley would prepare to challenge the sacred isle. Even if he wasn't able to destroy it, he should be able to escape with his life. A long time later. Boss. A black shadow streaked towards him at high speed. BB. Linley felt delighted. BB hopped directly onto Linley's shoulders, then stared angrily at Asano. This guy came again. It's fine now. Linley said. HRMPH. BB sneered coldly, then said mentally, Boss, don't be afraid of these people. In the Forest of Darkness, I made friends with a few saint-level magical beasts. All of them are really powerful. When the time comes, I'll ask them to help out and deal with these guys together. Saint-level magical beast friends. Linley stared at BB in astonishment. When Linley trained, BB would often go have fun in the Forest of Darkness. Unexpectedly, he had actually made friends with saint-level magical beasts. Right. They are all quite powerful. Haru's race is normally at the 9th rank. He just barely broke through. His power amongst saint-level magical beasts is just ordinary. But these friends that I made, like Big White, he is a thunder-winged white tiger. The big guy, he is a golden behemoth. Or Big Snake, a 9-headed serpent emperor. Linley was utterly speechless. How could saint-level magical beasts make friends with other saint-level magical beasts so easily? Right. One of the saints is also a rat-type magical beast. BB chortled. Linley was startled. A saint-level rat-type magical beast? Unfortunately, he's male. BB mentally said with resignation. Linley didn't know whether to laugh or to cry. As they mentally conversed, he asked, what does that saint-level rat-type beast look like? Is he like you? No. BB shook his head. That saint-level magical beast is all purple. He's quite handsome. However, he treats me quite well. He even gave me many precious, delicious things to eat. BB's face was all smiles. Linley secretly sighed. A purple saint-level rat? The books had no record of such a creature. It seems the books were incomplete. But boss, all of those friends of mine are very arrogant. They only became my friends after fighting with me. BB's face was covered with a delighted smile. Just at this moment, 2 human figures streaked through the air at high speed. One of the 2 was Pencilin. As for the other, it was a man covered in a long black robe. It should have been Asano's counterpart in the Cult of Shadows, Senior Judge Okasi. Book 10, Baruch, Chapter 23, The Wedding. Okasi landed in the middle of the lake, while at the same time, removing his enveloping black robe. Inside, he was wearing a tailored suit, like a gentleman at a banquet. Lord Desri, I've heard of your famous name long ago, but only today do we meet. I truly feel honored. Okasi smiled as he bowed, and then turned to look at the nearby Asano. Oh, Asano. Who is this person next to you? Lehman's voice rumbled out, Commander Lehman of the Zealot Division. Mr. Lehman. Okasi smiled and nodded. Master Linley, 10 years ago, our Cult of Shadows invited you to come to us, but sadly, at that time, the Radiant Church had sunk its claws into you and wouldn't let you go. Okasi looked at Linley and began to grumble. As though seeing an old friend of his. Linley could only smile politely. Enough. Desri laughed calmly. Everyone should know what the situation is. It truly is rather inappropriate for saints to participate in mortal battles. The Yulan Empire and the O'Brien Empire both do not use saints in normal battles. Saints are just used as a source of fear. Desri sighed. I've been in the anarchic lands for thousands of years now. I don't want it to be too anarchic. Thus, I suggest that in the battles between your three sides, saints are not to participate. Would you be willing to accept this? Yes. Asano nodded. Linley smiled and nodded. Desri immediately looked at Okasi, who grinned. Do you need to ask? Of course I accept. Wonderful. Desri's face grew solemn. With a flip of his hand, he retrieved 4 scrolls of paper and a pen. Then today, let the 4 of us write down a treaty. If any side goes against it, then the other 3 sides will join forces to destroy them. Linley frowned, while Okasi and Asano were also startled. Right now, the strongest of the 4 sides was definitely Desri's side. After all, Desri had Higginson, Hayward, and the other saints behind him. Sign here. Desri quickly wrote down the 4 agreements, then handed them to Linley, Asano, and Okasi. With a smile, Okasi was the first to sign his name. Linley didn't hesitate either as he put down his name. Sign. Asano signed his name as well. Excellent. Desri smiled. Each of us will have a copy of this agreement. But of course, this agreement is founded on our personal honor. If someone is so shameless as to allow saints to do battle, then destroy the evidence, you must know that no secret is airtight. Once it is discovered, then the other 3 sides will immediately destroy the 4th. It was nightfall now. The night fog covered the skies. Linley and Delia were enjoying the peaceful night. From today onwards, our life will become very peaceful. Delia's face had a hint of happiness on it. Smiling, she said, in the future, we'll no longer need to worry about many things. Linley, in the future, will you regret today's decision? Actually, you didn't have to agree today. I think Desri would still have supported you. Linley, too, had the feeling that Desri was still on their side. Even if he had not agreed, Desri wouldn't have allowed the enemy to kill him. No, I will never regret today's decision. Linley held Delia in his arms. Because if I did not agree, given my current power, although I can protect myself, I am not necessarily able to protect you. If you were to die, I think I would regret it for the rest of my life. It was because he had thought of Delia and of his family and friends that Linley had made this decision. Thank you. Delia rested her head against Linley's chest and said in a soft voice. Feeling her soft warmth, Linley felt all the more certain that this decision was the right one. Yulon Calendar, Year 10,010. July 21st. The city of Baruch, formerly Black Dirt City, was a hubbub of commotion. The construction of Baruch City was now complete. The inner city was a renovated Black Dirt City. The construction style of Baruch City focused on simplicity and practicality. The palace didn't take up too much area. It was only 2 square kilometers in size. In the past, when the Baruch Duchy had been founded, they had begun the renovations. After 5 months, they had finally finished. Most of the buildings in the palace were a single story tall, while the tallest buildings were only 2 stories high. The main hall of the main palace was very large, capable of holding several hundred people. And today, the main hall was full of guests. Your Majesty, Linley, I come as the representative of the Emperor of the Rohald Empire to bring our sincerest congratulations. A middle-aged man said respectfully to Linley. Linley toasted him with a cup of wine, while Delia held her arm in his. Smiling, the two toasted him. The two were very tired from all of this, but they were very happy as well. So many people have come today. Wharton walked to Linley's side. Big brother, the envoys from the Rohald Empire, Rhine Empire, and the O'Brien Empire have all arrived. Oh, look. Those ones are from the kingdoms of the Great Plains of the Far East. Mighty King Linley, on behalf of our King of the Muhan Kingdom, we would like to convey our King's most sincere congratulations. An envoy from the Muhan kingdom of the Great Plains of the Far East also toasted Linley, and Linley naturally had to give him face and respond. Linley and Delia shared a smile. "Linley, you seem rather tired," Delia said softly. "I'm not too bad." Linley forced out a smile. Linley hated having to welcome guests, but today was his own wedding. He couldn't hide from this responsibility. Delia said softly, "How about this? For those people of lower status, let me handle them." In the past, Delia worked as a diplomat. Thus, making conversation was quite easy for her. And she was much better at it than Linley, who would just say a few short, blunt sentences. "Lord Cardinal Guillermo of the Radiant Church has arrived." The voice rang out from outside the hall, and the entire hall fell rather silent. Linley and the Radiant Church, and the grudges between them, was known to everyone here. After all, the news of Linley's slaughter of those 6 angels had spread across the continent. But now, the Radiant Church was actually sending someone over? King Linley. Guillermo bowed modestly as he stepped forward. Linley still remembered how, 10 years ago, Guillermo had went to the Ernst Institute to recruit him. Now, after more than 10 years, Guillermo was still a cardinal, while he was now the king of a kingdom whom even the Radiant Church had to compromise with. "Mr. Guillermo, please come inside and rest," Linley said with a smile. "The disciples of the War Gods College have arrived." The people who came were Castro and 2 other personal disciples. "Lord Mackenzie has arrived. Yet another saint. Lord O'Casey of the Cult of Shadows has arrived." Hearing the list of names, the envoys of the various kingdoms and empires all headed off to the various corners to engage in conversation. Good heavens! All of them were saints. 3 disciples of the High Priest of the Yulan Empire have arrived. Linley and Delia immediately went to welcome them. Seeing these people, Delia immediately called out with excitement, "Big brother!" The person in the center of this 3-person delegation was Dixie. Dixie and his 2 fellow apprentices both walked over, offering Linley their congratulations. "Linley, you finally lived up to my little sister's hopes." In front of Linley, Dixie finally showed a smile. When they were at the Ernst Institute, Linley and Dixie had been acknowledged as the 2 major geniuses. Dixie suddenly whispered into Linley's ears, "Linley, let me warn you. In the future, you better not make my little sister angry. Otherwise, even if I'm not able to deal with you, I'll ask my master to personally make an appearance." "No need for your master to make an appearance. I'll engage in self-punishment." Linley began to laugh. Today, Linley could feel that he and Dixie were on very close terms now. Seeing how friendly Linley and Dixie were being, Delia felt extremely happy. Right at this time, the disciples of the War Saint of the Great Plains of the Far East have arrived. The voice ringing out from outside the hall confused Linley. Who was the War Saint? Desri had arrived very early today, and he went to Linley's side. He whispered, "Linley, currently, there are 4 people on par with me in the Yulan continent. The number 1 expert of the Great Plains of the Far East, the War Saint Tulili Tulile, is one of them." Linley now understood. There were 5 prime saints. One was Fane. Another was Desri. So a third was this Tulili. Who were the other 2? A middle-aged plainsman with a turban around his head walked in, 2 people behind him. Seeing Linley, the plainsman smiled. "King Linley. I, Moor Mauer, would like to bring my master's most sincere greetings and congratulations. My deepest thanks to Mr. Tulili." Linley smiled. The eyes of the plainsman, Moor, lit up. "So King Linley also knows of my master's name." "Ah! Lord Desri." The plainsman immediately bowed upon seeing Desri. Moor had previously seen his master, Tulili, personally spar with this Desri. His master, Tulili, had said that this Desri was on par with his own power. Naturally, Moore was extremely courteous. The Holy Lady of the Frost Goddess Shrine has arrived. Desri and Penslin immediately went to welcome her. Naturally, Linley and Delia went as well. Linley felt quite curious. How powerful exactly was this mysterious Frost Goddess Shrine? This holy lady had long, jade hair, and she seemed as cold and as unapproachable as a block of ice. Behind her were two beautiful girls. Big sister. Penslin was boundlessly overjoyed. Desri whispered to Linley, "Linley, this holy lady of the Frost Goddess Shrine, Rosary Lodoshali, is the #1 expert of the Frost Goddess Shrine. Her power is on par with mine." Hearing these words, Linley understood that this rosary should be yet another of the 5 prime saints. He now knew 4 of the prime saints, Fane, Desri, Tulili, and Rosary. Who is the last one? Linley secretly wondered. Unfortunately, the last expert didn't arrive, even by the time the wedding was concluded. In the main hall of the Baruch kingdom, there was a huge pile of saints. All the envoys of the various empires were engaged in conversation, while the saints were engaged in conversation with the other saints. Desri and Rosary and the others were together as well. Each level was segregated quite clearly. The envoy of the Yulan Empire has arrived. The person who had come was George. Second bro. Linley began to laugh loudly, and George excitedly ran towards him, then intentionally made a deep bow. "O most puissant King Linley. I, George, on behalf of His Imperial Majesty, ugh." Linley whacked George on the shoulder, not letting him get the words out. "Enough, sheesh. Acting like this in front of me." Linley was overjoyed. Come see fourth bro with me." Fourth bro is here as well." George was extremely excited. Ever since they had separated 7 or 8 years ago, he hadn't seen Reynolds a single time. Fourth bro. Second bro. As soon as Reynolds and George saw each other, they instantly shouted and then threw their arms around each other. And right at this time, the chairman of the Dawson conglomerate has arrived. Before the announcement was even finished, Yale rushed into the main hall. He immediately saw Linley, Reynolds, and George. "Haha, second bro, third bro, fourth bro, your boss has arrived." Laughing loudly, Yale charged towards them. The many people in the hall all looked at these 4 friends. If ordinary people had caused such a scene, they probably would have been rebuked already. But this was Linley and his closest friends. No one dared to say a thing. 10 years late, the 4 brothers had finally come together in one spot. Hey, as soon as this kid Linley has become a king, he starts acting differently. His attendants even ask me where my letter of invitation is. And asks me who I am. Geez, what a pain. A lazy-looking middle-aged man in a long, loose robe suddenly appeared in the middle of the hall. He grabbed a nearby cup of wine, then took 2 sips, seeming to enjoy it very much. Not bad. An expression of satisfaction was on his face. Lord Caesar. In the main hall, Barker suddenly saw this middle-aged man. He would never forget this deity who had saved his life. Book 10, Baruch, Chapter 24, That night. Barker and his brothers immediately rushed forward, but Caesar frowned in impatience. "Don't get so close to me. Don't let me become the center of attention." Loki. The 5 brothers could only grin awkwardly as they greeted Caesar from far away. Gurgle. As he sampled the wine, Caesar went hiding into a corner of the room. Whenever he encountered the envoys of the kings and empires, he would toast them, not putting on any airs of being a deity at all. "Caesar." Suddenly, a cold voice rang out. Caesar turned. An awkward smile couldn't help but to appear on his face. The person who had spoken was the Holy Lady of the Frost Goddess Shrine, Rosary. Rosary stared at Caesar. She snorted a few times, but she didn't say anything else. Being stared daggers at like this, Caesar couldn't do anything except grin stupidly. You've already become a deity, but you still act like this. A hint of moisture seemed to appear in the eyes of Rosary, the icy beauty. Caesar squeezed out a smile. Rosary, aren't you having a wonderful time being the holy lady? Alas, I'm just a wastrel who wanders all over the place. I go wherever I like and do what I like. I can't take good care of you. Caesar felt some misery in his heart. Lord Caesar. Linley saw Caesar as well. Don't go. Desri held Linley back, a nasty little smirk on his face. Why are you going to get between those two lovebirds? Lovebirds? Isn't she the holy lady? Linley was stunned. Who says a holy lady can't have a man? Desri glanced at Linley. Rosary is almost at the deity level herself. For her to continue working on behalf of the frost goddess shrine is already giving it quite a bit of face. Desri grinned as he watched Caesar and Rosary from afar. Linley exchanged amused glances with Delia. Linley, so this is the Lord Caesar you spoke of. Linley nodded. It seems this deity has incurred a romantic debt. Delia pursed her lips as she laughed, and Linley shook his head as well. Lord Caesar, how should I put this, he's quite the dissolute romantic. This night was quite a festive one, especially Desri's group. George, Yale, and Reynolds as well. By the time he greeted and chatted with everyone, it was already midnight. Only now did Linley head towards Delia's room. One of the benefits of being a saint was that despite having drank an enormous amount of wine, Linley wasn't drunk at all. Linley. He heard someone call his name before he even reached the door. Linley turned and saw Caesar lying on a couch and drinking wine. Linley, how come you ended up getting married? Geez, after I heard you got married, I felt really sorry for you. Really sorry. Linley was stunned. Caesar stood up, then flew over gracefully. Really sorry. Yet another man has stepped into his tomb. As he spoke, Caesar's body flew high into the air. Oh yeah, happy wedding. All right, I'm off. Caesar's voice sounded in Linley's ears. Suddenly. You old lecher. A clear sharp sound. A graceful, white-garbed figure flew into the air as well, chasing after Caesar. Caesar's flying speed instantly increased. Maybe it's better to be in the tomb. Linley had a hint of a smile on his lips as he headed out. Soon, he arrived at the doorway to Delia's room. There were two beautiful maids in front of it, and the two maids respectfully drew open the door. Linley waved his hand at them. You can go now. Yes, Your Majesty. In the dark room, the only person there was Delia, sitting quietly in front of her bed. She just looked at Linley, waiting for Linley to speak. And finally, Linley did speak. Bibi. Get out. Ha ha, boss. Bibi crawled out from beneath the bed. Bibi. Delia didn't know whether to laugh or to cry. Today, Bibi disappeared very early on. Who would have thought he had been hiding here? Linley looked at Bibi, also not knowing whether to laugh or to cry. Bibi, what are you doing? Preparing a gift for Yat, boss. Bibi raised his head high. What gift? Linley was puzzled. Bibi grinned, his little claws handing over a black rock. This is something my good friend gave me. It was that violet gold saint level rat that I told you about last time. I'm too young and haven't accumulated much wealth, so my bro gave me this. What is this? Linley took the black stone in confusion. Can it be some sort of rare or precious mineral? Can't be. What use would a small piece of rock be anyhow? Linley carefully inspected it, but couldn't tell what it was. I don't know either. Bibi handed it to Delia. Delia, personalize and soul bind it with blood. Bind it with blood. Linley raised an eyebrow. Anything that needed to be bound by blood was definitely a treasure. For example, Linley's blood violet sword, or his coiling dragon ring. Even the adamantine heavy sword wasn't worthy of needing to be blood-bound. Generally speaking, only extremely rare and valuable items would require this process. All right. Delia trusted Bibi very much. A blade of air cut Delia's finger, immediately creating a tiny wound. A single drop of blood fell onto the black stone. The black stone suddenly transformed into a ray of light and suddenly enveloped Delia. Linley was shocked. He watched as the black stone merged into Delia's body and utterly vanished. What is going on? Linley was shocked. He had never seen anything as weird as this before. Bibi stared with a gaping jaw as well. I have no idea. Delia, how do you feel? Linley immediately asked. Delia shook her head, puzzled. I don't feel anything at all. Actually, it seems I can sense the nearby elemental essence much more clearly. Right. That's it? Linley secretly nodded. Generally speaking, even the vilest of items, once bound by blood, wouldn't harm its master. Linley wasn't too worried about that. But, what was that thing? Bibi, this black stone, why did that magical beast give it to you? This seems to be a treasure. Linley asked. Of course, all they knew right now about this treasure was one thing: it could increase elemental essence affinity tremendously. Bibi hurriedly shook his head. Boss, honestly, that good friend of mine gave it to me. He said it is very useful to magi. Very useful to magi. Linley understood. Perhaps this was some sort of special object that could enhance elemental essence affinity. It was useless to saint-level magical beasts, which is why he gave it to Bibi. But Linley had a feeling. There was more than met the eye to this black stone. All right, Bibi. Do you plan to stay here? Linley stared at Bibi. Bibi's beady little eyes rolled, and then he rubbed his nose twice. Boss, once you got a wife, you forgot about Bibi. Sniff. Linley immediately sent a kick in his direction, but by then, Bibi had already disappeared in a flash as he left the room. The door shut. The room instantly turned quiet. Linley and Delia sat side by side on the bed. What are you looking at? Delia was a bit shy right now. Linley laughed. I'm thinking about how many kids we should have. Delia was startled. Linley suddenly lifted Delia up and carried her over to the bed, and then, one piece of clothing after another came flying out from the bed. They hadn't slept all night. Whew. Linley lay there on the bed, with Delia resting on top of him, her head against Linley's chest. Beads of sweat caused Delia's fragrant hair to stick to Linley's body. Linley lowered his head to look at Delia. That faintly red face looked like that of a kitten's. Her pert little nose was sniffling. Linley's hand gently stroked Delia's slick, bare back. In his mind, he continued to savor what had happened just then. How nervous he had felt when he had entered Delia's body, Linley had to admit. Things had gotten just a little too wild just then. It had been 3 entire hours. Delia, what is it? I want to cry. Delia hugged Linley's chest. I just want to cry right now. When I think about how you and Alice were together, I want to cry. When I think about how I waited 10 years, I want to cry. Sob. Linley held his head in his hands. Women. It was impossible to understand them. Linley, can I tell you something? Delia said softly. HRM. Linley lowered his head to look at Delia. Delia raised her head to look at Linley. Her face serious, she said in a soft voice, You got hard, down there. For a moment, Linley had no idea what to say. Delia, you know, Wharton and Nina's kid is going to be born in a few months. Don't you think the two of us need to work harder? Linley whispered. Delia was startled. So, I need to keep at it? Linley flipped over and pressed Delia down once again.